Hey, it's JK. So, I know many of you actually enjoy putting my videos on to help you go to sleep, which is pretty funny to think about. But anyway, so what I thought I'd try is giving you guys a nice big compilation of 3 of my larger videos that I've ever done. This is me beating the Dark Souls Trilogy, so Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, with 3 cycles in each game, only leveling 1 stat in each cycle. For a new game, I only leveled Strength. For a New Game Plus, I only leveled Dex, and then the final stat changed depending on the game. In Dark Souls 1, in New Game Plus, I only leveled Resistance, and in Dark Souls 3, I only leveled Luck, and in Dark Souls 2, I only leveled ADP. This means that in each of the games, I got to the end with unupgraded health and stamina, and that was about as fun as you might imagine. So anyway, here's a nice big compilation for you guys to watch, chill out, and go to sleep. Pleasant dreams, have a good one. To start off, I normally give my character a name related to the challenge, but on the morning I was supposed to start this run, my wife Babs woke up and told me she had a dream where I made a character called Babs Derp. This seemed like the universe telling me to make this character, so I did. Let me know in the comments below what you think Babs said when I showed her this specimen right here. Well, of course, we get the Master Key as the gift, and maybe a surprise choice, we choose the Deprived as our class, as it's got the perfect weapon to begin this run. We Hornet line past the Asylum Demon to grab it, the unassuming club. We take Oscar to a club night, and while he recovers from his hangover, we smack the Asylum Demon until he gets a club foot. It didn't take many hits, but this weapon seems pretty solid moveset wise. Shame we will never use it ever again. Dropping down into the Fire Mario Shrine, we drop below the elevator and open these chests to get the Morning Star. There's also the Wing Spear and the Zweihander in the graveyard nearby for future use. But the Morning Star will be our weapon of choice for the Tourist Demon. The usual plunge does good damage, and the Morning Star also staggers him after not too many hits. This weapon also has bleed, which did proc right near the end, and soon after, the Tourist Demon was mourning his own demise. I guess you could call Taurus a Morning Star sign. We then run and unlock the bridge shortcut, and run past the Red Kite Dragon grabbing the Claymore on the way, and we level strength to 18. We get the basement key, and then go to upgrade our next weapon, the Zweihander. 800 souls! Wow, Andre, you're breaking my balls here. As luck would have it, the Bearer Reebok Knight drops exactly the right amount, and also another Titanite Shard. With the Zweihander upgraded a couple of times, and a hearty pancake breakfast in my tummy, it was time for the Gogs. As you might imagine, the damage is pretty good here. The running overhead attack is especially effective, and actually seems to get the stagger every time. It takes just a few running swings to hander these Zwei Gargoyles a defeat. Bell number 1 is rung, things are looking good. On the hunt for more weapons, we check Andre's stock, but the only thing that fits our current need is the War Pick, which we purchase and then upgrade to +2. I get the feeling this weapon is a lot weaker than the Zweihander, so it only makes sense to pick a weaker boss to go to war with. In this case, that means the Moonlight Butterfly. Now, the damage is okay, nothing amazing, but this does highlight something I mentioned earlier. Having unupgraded stamina in this game is particularly detrimental, as I can only get a total of maybe 3 hits off here before needing to wait for my stamina to recharge. Bear in mind, this is a boss that you don't really need to dodge an attack in succession for. Imagine how more mobile bosses are going to be. Anyway, Moonlight Butterfly is defeated. Strength is coming along nicely, now up to 27 points already. We give the Divine Andre to Ember, and also buy the Weaponsmith box for weapon upgrades on the go. We trade Lothric some foot for Fap. We'll be keeping this ring on the whole run. Well, I suppose we best get that second bell rung, eh? We head right down to Blight Town and grab the Great Club hidden off in this corner. But that's not the only strength weapon we can acquire here. I get Babs Derp back to her human glory as she rests her stanky leg over this bonfire, and we trigger the spawn of Milfeater Mandred. She actually wields one of my favourite weapons in the whole game, which of course I want for this run. Even with the underwhelming War Pick, we vanquish her easily to claim the Butcher Knife. I'm going to save that for a later boss to be sure, and I will talk then about why I like it so much. But for now, we need to focus on Quelaag. I level up to 30 strength and upgrade the Great Club twice, so we should be good to go. Honestly, I had a few jokes written about this weapon, but they were all pretty grating, so I won't bother. The damage is obviously very nice, especially if you go with the R2 or the forward and R2 jump attack, which of course you do want to so you can bonk Quelaag as hard as possible with that massive stick you're wielding. Wait, what? So anyway, with a few more smacks in between avoiding lava and sword swings, Quelaag joins the club of defeated bosses on the strength cycle. With bell number 2 rung and 34 strength under our belt, we die to literally the shortest fall ever on the way out. There is also a weapon these guys can drop which fits our build, but the drop rate is pretty low, so I'm going to come back to farm this later. Upon inspecting Andre's stock again, I noticed that the battle axe also fits our criteria of having strength as its highest scaling, so I buy it up. At the undead merchant, I thought it might be useful to buy the bottomless box so I can store away any weapons I've already used. I also grabbed the reinforced club. There sure are a lot of variants of this weapon type in the game. I actually have a need of souls, so I feed Quelaag Solder Frampt and farm some souls from the Dragon Bridge to get enough to buy the Crest of Artorias. I also upgrade the battle axe to +3, join the Kitty Covenant, and speak to Shiva and get the stone armor. Dressed highly fashionably, we make our way down to the Capra Demon. To be totally honest, I couldn't be bothered to fight him, so I passed the controller over to my wife Babs to do it for me.
Hey, it's Babs. So, my husband asked me to cover this bit of his video because I actually did fight Capra Demon on his behalf and he's asked me to do a commentary about it. So, here we go. Fuck Capra Demon.
So yeah, the Babtel axe was pretty decent. Got the job done anyway, and strength is now at 36. Down in the depths, we rip off this butcher's sack and then farm some souls and titanite shards to upgrade the reinforced club. As this weapon again has bleed, I've got a solid usage idea for it. We head back to the asylum and on the way trade the butcher's sack for the demon's great hammer. So onto the stray demon. I tried to give him some positive reinforcement, but turned out he was too much of a bleeding heart and thus lost big chunks of health in rapid succession. Our normal hits are still pretty low damage, but his attacks as always are pretty easy to avoid. With the doll in hand, we return to Firelink, but instead of leveling up, I've got another plan for these souls. So back down to B-Town. On the way, this guy forgot where the elevator was and then the item he dropped warped over to this platform. Weird. Shame it's not the weapon he wields. Anyway, as we spoke to Shiva earlier, he's down here now and has many interesting weapons to sell us. I buy the Demon Great Machete and the Demon's Great Axe. I took the time to kill Havel for his ring as well, a staple for most of this run as our weight load is pretty crap due to our low endurance. So I'm going to give the Demon Great Machete a go. I got it to +2 and then brought these snakes down from their serpent house. Sen's Fortress has an essential item, the covetous gold serpent ring, as some low chance weapon farming will need to take place on this run. The Crestfallen Merchant is also here where we can buy the Berserk Sword and the Great Axe. The R2 of the machete is beastly but slow as molasses, probably very few enemies that would let you get off 2 of them like this. With Iron Golem being our next boss, thankfully our slow attacks aren't too much of an issue. The damage is not bad, and a few hits to the ankles with the R1s get him machete-tering, with a few more knocking him over. We still can't really capitalize that much though because of our low stamina. I was hoping to maybe knock him off the edge, but in the end we did pull off one R2 to kill him. Onwards to Anor Londo, and it's at last time to get that butcher knife upgraded and ready to go. Oh, and strength up to 42. So why do I love this weapon? Well, it's not like it does anything super remarkable, but the high scaling in strength, the speed of the swings, the range, and also the stagger potential on enemies just all make for a really good time. Human enemies will usually stagger in just one swing. Glorious. Also, you do regain a little health with each hit, which is nice. Oh hey, Goggles Halberd. Even the Silver Knight stagger with a single hit from this thing. Tremendous. After getting the bonfire unlocked, upgrading strength to 43, and then upgrading the butcher knife to +5, it was at last time for Ornstein and Smo. Check out this stun lock on Ornstein here. See why I like this weapon? If we had more stamina, this would be insane. However, even with this, I realised that trying to do it with my weapon only at +5 was handicapping myself unnecessarily, so I got it up to +10 so that we'd have a really knife time. Ornstein had a butcher's at our new damage, and it's safe to say he was not a fan. It's important for this cycle that we kill Ornstein first. Super Smo was not really an issue, apart from when he randomly decided to do the charge at close range. A few more swings put the Butcherry on top of this boss fight cake. Strength now reaches 48, and thankfully we can now warp around thanks to the Lord Vessel. We can also straight away turn the Butcher Knife into a boss weapon, the Golem Axe, which also works great for us here. I get some Demon Titanite and bring it to +3. We can now also turn the Reinforced Club into Smo's Hammer and grab Havel's Great Shield and the Dragon Tooth from this hidden room. Strength weapons are plenty. It's been quite a lot of setup here, but I get Havel's Great Shield to +3 and also make the Great Axe into a Divine Great Axe +5. With all that sorted, we actually pay a visit to Vamos, which I don't really tend to do much on any playthrough. Let's grease him the only way I know how.
Trying to cause trouble, are you? I am Thanos the blacksmith. Curses!
Hey, what can I say? I wanted the Vammer of Hamos. Pinwheel is our next boss, and of course I didn't want to do this with any normal weapon, so it's Havel's Great Shield time. Honestly, it's ironic because the damage was in fact not great. This was actually a really long pinwheel fight, nearly 5 whole minutes, which is wild. I actually thought I was going to die at one point, but luckily managed to shield myself from that embarrassment and put an end to this one. With 49 strength now, Patches helpfully pushes us down to get the Skull Lantern, and now we crack out the Divine Great Axe for Nito. These skeletons tried to interrogate me, but I had some questions to axe them myself. They went down in 1 hit each. After this, Nito is pretty easy as he's so slow that Galapagos tortoises zoom past him, so down he goes. First Lord Soul is done. Strength gets jacked all the way to 55, and then we go out to paint the world red. With blood. This is a good time to use the Hammer of Vamos, which has additional fire damage, which is kinda neat. We make the Vam most of the time Priscilla is visible, and smash her into defeat. Or smash her in the feet, one of the two. As I plummeted off, I had some time to think and realised that I needed to do Gwendolyn. I asked Guinevere if she had a fax machine, and she died from embarrassment. Weird. But I was unsure what weapon I wanted to use to kill Gwendolyn. I tried again to farm the large club, but the results were a load of crap. Patches was now in Firelink and sold me a mace, but this still seemed like too good a weapon for Gwynwheel. So I found a better option at the Undead Merchant, the hand axe. This actually came in handy, because I could do 3 quick hits each time I got to Gwendolyn. Sure, the damage wasn't great, but as long as nothing distracts me, then it's all good. He is donezo. But what about the mace? Well, we still got the Gaping Dragon. Smacking his little wobbly head does some amazing damage. We even get a tail cut somehow, and down it goes. I still have some more silliness to pull off here, so we buy the large leather shield. Don't worry, it'll make sense shortly. But first, I actually had some good luck with farming for once, and got the Man Serpent Greatsword to drop on my first try. The Gold Serpent Ring really helped, it seems. Feeling encouraged, I tried these Blighttown guys once again, and this time they finally dropped what I've been searching for, the large club. So let's put our shield to use now. Cease Leather Discharge gets smacked with our large lesser shield 6 times until he falls to his death. I tried to make some wormwood, but the worm wouldn't play ball. Second time round, the worm has turned though. As we're in the Demon Ruins, it makes sense to use our demon weapons to take out the bosses here, so we use the Demon Great Axe for the Demon Fire Sage. This is actually one of the strongest weapons in the game, so it probably seems like a bit of a waste to demonstrate it on this boss. I might regret it if you axe me later. Damage is obviously awesome, but it's pretty slow. The jumping attack especially chunks this chunky boy's health bar, and he goes down shortly after regretting his life choices. For Centipede Demon, we use the Demon Great Hammer to really hammer home the point that this is a messy boss and no one likes him. The hits are again slow, but we did manage to disarm him at one point to get the orange charred ring early. This bug gets squished, and on we go. For Bed of Chaos, it doesn't really matter which weapon I use, but I need something to shield me from going hollow while attempting this thing. So I use the Hollow Soldier Shield. Nothing much else to say for this one. Strength is now at 67. Now, interesting little fact, a lot of people ask me why I didn't upgrade strength to 99 during the one-shot video. Well, having 99 strength actually doesn't matter if you're two-handing a weapon. When you two-hand a weapon, the game gives you a 50% boost to strength, so at 66 strength, two-handing the weapon gives you the max damage you can get from strength scaling. If you want that damage while one-handing the weapon, then yes, 99 strength would be necessary. With that out of the way, let's go smack a cute doggo with a large club. The large club actually has toxic, but with the damage this club does, Sif was going to die long before it procced, and smacking Sif with this is toxic enough anyway. Largely uneventful, and we move forward. I think now it's time to test out Smo's hammer, which is able to one-shot this Black Knight with the jump attack. This weapon is getting saved till much later. We're also taking on 8-headed Larry while we're down here. Larry takes so much damage from Smo's hammer that we don't even need to break all his heads to kill him. The Gold Golem also goes down in just 2 strikes. I'm looking forward to using this on a boss, but for now, I want to give the Man Serpent Greatsword a go. The Keeper of the Seal isn't able to ward off our attacks and gets crushed. Because it's the 4 Kings next, it's time to get on Havel's armor for its imposing stats. Despite nearly dying right at the beginning, I managed to pull it back and recover to let out some of my serpent-up aggression on these spiky tosses. Our weapon isn't doing as much damage as I'd hoped honestly, but it is just plus 10, so yeah. Its swings are slow, and we can't do too many too quickly, but it's enough to kill one before another spawns, thankfully. As always, I've got a nagging feeling that this is going to be horrible in the future cycles, but for now, we snake out the victory. It's now time to test out everyone's favourite sword, the Great Sword. Obviously, a clear reference to the popular semi-underground anime, Boruto. The damage it does is pretty solid. 2 R2 pokes are enough to kill this golem and secure the broken pendant. Seath cussed us out the first time we met him, hurting our self-esteem, leaving us in not a great spot with our already pretty low health. How am I supposed to climb to success like this? Luckily, Snaky Jake was there to put an arm around me and tell me it's all gonna be okay. Thankfully, we do make it to the bonfire and then take on Seath with the greatsword. Just like in Boruto, we're able to attack on this titanic dragon with some plus ultra damage. I poke Seath repeatedly in the bulge between his legs, and after not too many hits, the last Lord Soul is claimed. In a bit of a prep montage, I drop the Lord Souls into this cereal bowl and kill the Black Knights for their weapons. I also kill the giant blacksmith for his hammer, which is really sad to be honest. Lastly, just gotta take out Andre. Sorry buddy, I just gotta... So I kill Hammer for his blacksmith Andre and get everything upgraded. Time to finish off this cycle. But it turns out Ian the Sanctuary Guard was pretty annoyed with the many jokes I'd made about him in the past, and he came to play. The hammer does okay damage here and can stagger Ian in 2 hits, which is nice, but Ian keeps imitating MC Hammer and telling me I can't touch him. I think if I had more stamina, I could probably stun lock him, but 3 hits is all I can do. This was the weaker of the remaining weapons I've allocated for this run, so no issue using it to get through Ian, who left after this fight to film his new Star Wars spin-off show, The Manticorian. Worth noting there were some other strength weapons I could have gotten here, like the stoner hammer these guys wield, but I couldn't be bothered to farm, so just slaughtered the blacksmiths instead. No regrets. The giant blacksmith hammer is actually an awesome weapon. It swings fast and has high base damage as well as lightning damage. I chose it for Artorias because of the speed. It can also stagger him pretty well, but that doesn't help if you whiff a hit due to greed and lose the fight at the last possible moment. But obviously I would never do that, right? I guess you could call that a giant fail, but I don't think I need to hammer home the point anymore. On the next attempt, I had an awful start but somehow managed to recover. I didn't want to risk anything more than R1s here. 3 hits was enough to stagger him for a moment, which was very useful, and there were actually quite a few times where I could get 3 hits in. I nearly made the same mistake again at the end, but thankfully this time I was able to survive and land the finishing blow. Just 2 DLC bosses remain. So Black Knight Calamite. It felt only appropriate here to use the Dragon Tooth, Havel's giant club. I triggered Calamite's wrath and then headed down here, smashing these bloatheads in the skull, even this guy as he fell to his demise. Shame his head can't be used as a bloatation device. We bonk the Mimic for the crest key and then give the soul of Artorias to Kieran in exchange for the Tracer weapons. We can't use Artorias' sword anyway due to their faith in int requirements, so might as well give it to her and save us an annoying fight. Goff shoots down Calamite as per usual. Looks like Calamite landed on his head there. Ow. The cycle is getting a bit long in the tooth already, so let's stop it from dragging on. The Dragon Tooth does some sweet damage, not amazing though, and it takes nearly half my stamina for one swing, which I guess is to be expected. Calamite does high damage to me obviously, but luckily I'm not at the point of being one-shot, so with a few more bonks, this dragon hits the dirt. One more DLC boss, but let me just say this. Screw this section here that killed me more times than most of the bosses on this cycle. Made it eventually though. So we're here at Manus, and you know what? There is one attack he does which I just struggle to dodge to this day, and it's maybe not the one you think. It's actually this one. Getting caught on the edge of it is pretty frustrating, as I then get stun locked for death, and there's no possible way for me to light roll with this weapon. And no, I'm not using the silver pendant because I can't handle switching between that and the Estus. For any other boss, this hammer would probably be Smoverkill, but not Manus. No, he hits like a truck, and his attacks kill me in 1 or 2 hits. The hammer is only at +3 thanks to the lack of available Demon Titanite. Before you say it, no, I didn't want to farm that Titanite demon on the Lost Izalith Bridge, that's awful. Anyway, I stick with just 1 R1 when I get the chance to, chipping his health away nicely. He helped me out by doing this very easily avoidable projectile ring at the end for easy hits, and I actually managed to land the sweet looking R2 smash to finish him off. Before ending the cycle, we crush Dusk, buy some more stuff from Shiva, and farm the Bandit's Knife. With this, we're ready to take the Golem's axe for a spin at last. So of course, it'd be easy enough to just no-hand parry Gwyn to oblivion, but I wanted to test out the Golem axe's special move. When you do the one-handed R2 attack, it fires off a projectile just like the Iron Golem does. Gwyn does like to dodge these, but if you manage to hit him during his dodge, you get sweet instability damage, and 2 of them actually stagger him. One more, and Gwyn is go-eliminated, bringing this first cycle to a satisfactory climax. Oh, the World of Darkness ending. Hopefully this isn't a sign of things to come. You know, it took a lot of strength to complete this cycle, but the real question is, do you have the strength to move from unsubscribed to the subscribed? Help us reach 100k subs by the end of the year, and get that plaque to cringe out my son in a few years' time. Also get notified in new videos and streams. I appreciate you. So, dexterity only. Now, originally I had planned to only use weapons with pure dex scaling, but there's actually so few of them, so anything with higher dex scaling than strength is allowed here. For the Asylum Demon, we're going to use Ian's Tail. The damage is not the best. I'm glad that we won't be using this on a later boss. Even the R2 damage is pretty trash. It does inflict poison, but as we know, poison damage in Dark Souls 1 is awful, but we love that tick tick tick. The range is also not as good as you'd think it would be. After longer than it probably should have taken, the Asylum Demon goes down. Ian's Tail is over, but ours is just beginning. We take the Crover Pass to Lordran and put our first few points into dexterity. Shame it takes so much to level up now, but I guess 14 dex is better than none. We take the Valley of the Drakes route up and around so we can buy the Andre of Crest from Artorias, unlocking the Firelink Shrine shortcut already, but also returning to the Asylum right off the bat. Remember the bandit's knife we farmed a little earlier? Well, now is its time to shine, against the Stray Demon. While the damage from each hit is awful, 3 hits is enough to proc bleed, which does a sizable chunk of damage. The hits are very fast as well, and consume little stamina, so getting 3 R1s in is pretty easy. This dagger is OP to be honest, FromSoft should have banned it. My idea was that this would get a whole bunch more levels early, but I got a grand total of 2 more points of dex from this endeavour. Oh well, another boss down at least. So now we're going to test out the spear. No fancy name, literally just spear. It can poke this guy out the way at least, but how will it do against the Capra Demon? Something was off about that. Seemed like the dogs were conspiring against me. On the next attempt, I equipped the stone armor apart from the helmet, so I could at least medium roll. It sucks that it takes multiple hits to take out the dogs, but with them down, things go a lot more smoothly. The damage is still bad, but at least the attack is quick. I did have to pop some humanities at one point though. Finally, Capra is done. I feel like we're in for some bad fights on this cycle. I grab the large ember now, getting hit by the rarely seen grab attack from the butcher as I do. I give it to Andre, no not like that, buy the pike from him, and then upgrade the wing spear to +10. With this in hand, it was time for the Gogs. The damage is okay, but I guess I was expecting more from a +10 weapon. Saying that, this is New Game Plus and I have like 16 dexterity, so... Also, they hit pretty hard now, especially the fire right here. The Gogs thought they had my number, but thanks to this spear, the Gogs soon found out that every time they wing, they get the Wong number. I also got the tail axe, which will be handy. Short R1 pokes and constant running put an end to this one. Speaking of winging, the first spell is now Wung. Yay, 20 dexterity! So the Goggle tail axe is just higher in dex scaling than strength, so it does indeed count as a viable weapon for this cycle. It seems like a good weapon for Quelaag because... I don't even know to be honest, but we're going to use it. At +10, this is by far the best damage we've seen from anything on the dex cycle, so maybe it's tailor-made for this fight. It increases my poison, toxic and bleed resistances also just by holding it, not that that actually helps in any way here. Quelaag has a lot of HP now, so it took a lot of hits, but at least the swings are fast. After not too long, this fight is over and Bell 2 is rung. Dex is at 22, slowly creeping up there. But now it was time for Babs to once again take over and beat a boss on New Game Plus using only an unupgraded dagger because that's how hardcore she is. Prepare for some of the most insane fight I've ever seen. thinking? I want to see everyone in the comments saying how Babs is literally the greatest Dark Souls player to have ever lived for pulling that off. While still here in Blighttown, we run and grab the Falchion from up here. Back at Andre, we get the pike up to +10. Yay, another crappy spear. Luckily it's only for this clown. We run up and stab Pike Wheel repeatedly with our pin, and this ends pretty quickly. Zero respite though, as now I want to get us to Anor Londo. I again don't really want to waste a good weapon on the Iron Golem, so just the +10 Scimitar will hopefully get the job done. Hopefully. Obviously we swing fast, but again the damage is weak versus Iron Golem's resistances. I was really skeptical if we'd actually be able to topple him. Thankfully, after enough hits in rapid succession, the Iron Golem informed me that he was scimitardy to an appointment he had scheduled and had to take the quickest route down to make it without having to pay late fees. I was only too happy to help him. Although I unlocked Anor Londo and leveled up, I quickly returned to Sens to kill this guy for Rickard's rapier. We've got more weapons to get yet though. After the Anor Londo archer decided to unlife himself, I farmed the Silver Knight Spear and the Silver Knight Straightsword, two fantastic weapons for this run. But what to use for Ornstein and Smo, I hear you asking? Well, initially I tried the Great Scythe, and honestly I wasn't really feeling it for this fight. The scythe often hits Smo's hammer because of the way it swings. By the way, I need to kill Smo first this time round. Also, one-shots have become a reality now, as in me getting one-shotted, definitely not the bosses. So I decided to switch to the Gold Tracer. Its swings are fast, the damage is good, and it even has bleed, which is especially helpful for chunking Smo's health. With a good enough attack window, his health bar disappears without a trace. Super Ornstein is easier, but there's still the imminent danger of one scuff dodge being the end of my attempt. Still, this is definitely the best dex weapon I've used so far, the gold standard in fact, and with a few more minutes hugging Ornstein's ankles, ONS are defeated. Dex is up now to a respectable 33 at last, and once again we can walk between bonfires. So guess what it's time for? That's right, more weapon farming. Okay, to be fair, getting Ian the Painting God's sword was pretty quick this time round. And speaking of paintings, we kill Jeremiah to get the notched whip, and then frustratingly this thing drops a souvenir of reprisal, when I don't need one. So for Priscilla, I needed her tail weapon, so I used the Silver Knight sword to cut the tail as it was the best weapon for it, and then I quit out to reset the fight. I don't want to waste the Silver Knight sword on Priscilla, so instead I used the Flamberge to fulfill my urge. I legit have no idea if that's how you pronounce it, I've probably butchered it. Wait, it's pronounced Flameburger? What the? Well, anyway, it has bleed and it does good damage, so Priscilla returns to where she belongs. Devlington 87's dreams. Well, it's been a while since I got one-shot by something, so here it is. The Moonlight Butterfly one-shotting me. Die, you stupid bug! Oh yeah, I used the shot A. I'd like to replace the O in that name with another I to accurately describe what I think of it. But yay, we got 40 dex, so that's something. As we're in the garden anyway, it's Sif time once again. For this fight, I chose the washing pole, a giant katana. My logic was that it's really long, so if I'm underneath Sif and I swing, I'm almost guaranteed to hit. I was basically correct as well. Like most katanas, it also has bleed which procced when Sif was on low health. A few more swift swings, and the washing pole hangs Sif out to dry. I make sure to grab the Hornet Ring also, as this is going to come in handy later. We also actually haven't done the Taurus Demon, so we might as well take him out with the Falchion. The plunging attack takes off a third of his health, and the Falchion can actually stagger it after a Falconsistent strikes, which I wasn't expecting. Easy stuff, but the main reason I wanted to get the Falchion used up is now I can turn it into Quelaag's Fury Sword with Quelaag's Soul. This is one of the best weapons in the whole game, and I'm really excited to use this bad boy. But before that, we have some crappy bosses to kill with crappy weapons. Like Gwendolyn with the Rapier. Honestly, I worry about making any jokes to do with this weapon's name for fear of YouTube misinterpreting it and demonetizing the video. So let's just say I poked Gwendolyn repeatedly with my pointy sword and then he died. There's also Rickard's Rapier, which I'm going to bring with me down to the depths. Jabbing the gaping dragon in the head with his pointy sword is even funnier than usual, although at one point I poked him so Rickard that his little head bounced me up in the air. So silly looking. Anyway, this weapon did okay I guess, kind of weird that it doesn't have bleed given that you're literally jabbing a needle right into enemies, but anyhow. We quickly take out 8-headed Larry again with the very misnamed Scythe and grab the whip from Blighttown. It feels like a good time to take on the Izalith boss gauntlet, and would you look at that, Priscilla's dagger has the best bleed in the game. Who's our first boss? Now despite doing the best bleed damage in the game, it actually takes a few more hits to get the bleed on the Demon Fire Sage. But once we do, we really Prispilla some his blood with this dagger. In just over a minute and a half of quick little slashes, this giant demon falls to a tiny dagger. Video game logic, am I right? As for the centipede demon, well, I decided to channel my inner Hugh Jackman and get the claw out. It's also a bleed weapon, but this guy has much higher resistance to bleed than those chubby demons from before. The damage isn't clawful, but it's not the best either. Also, the range is kinda bad, but it's a fist weapon, so what do you expect? A few more slashes and we bring some claw and order back to Lost Izalith. Oh, and I killed the Bed of Chaos with the whip, but no one cares about that boss. FromSoft sure didn't. Also, why is the whip animation so lame looking? Looks like I'm trying to lightly stroke them with it. Challenger Handy tries to take me forcefully to his all Gwyn run, but luckily we just end up in the DLC. So it's time to bust out the fine china, aka the good weapons. As Ian was a bit aggy last time, we treat him to a nice Uchigatana, and this weapon is just great. Quick attacks, good damage, bleed, and we even stagger Ian, which I wasn't expecting. I was a little penisy and got poisoned, but it didn't matter. We send Ian off soon after, as he goes to his next role, acting with Lady Gaga in the movie House of Uchi. Dex is hitting 53 now, and we vibe a little bit as we prepare to take on Artorias. I was going to use the misnamed Scythe, but Babs the Scythu waifu was not impressed by this incorrectly identified weapon and told me not to use it on one of the coolest bosses in the game. So instead, it was time for the Silver Knight Straight Sword. I mean, this weapon has everything you want really. Decent damage, good speed, good range. It's nothing super remarkable, but it's easily speedy enough to get 2 hits in. It does take 3 to stop the buff from happening, so being close enough is important. Good weapon, it wishes good night to this knight. No silver lining for him this time. Heading down in the world, we get smoked by the rarely seen Marvelous Chester invasion and then get the crest key. But before we do anything else, we're going to backtrack a little. I head down to New Londo Ruins, slashing this screaming ghost with my scythe. Just call me the Dexorcist. Okay, I deserve that. Second time we make it up, get the key to the seal, and now we can get the very large ember, and for the first time we upgrade a weapon all the way to plus 15. I felt it was time to stop messing around, especially when we have New Game Plus Manus to contend with. The damage is good, but god damn this stupid attack. If you've ever done a dex build in this game, you've probably used the Great Scythe before. It's an amazing weapon. Good speed, good range, good damage. 2 hits does almost 1,000 damage, which is definitely what we need right now. Manus decides to do the jump attack twice in a row at the end, allowing me to have the time of my scythe and finish him off. Great stuff. After we reap Dusk's soul, it's time to take on Calamite. Now he can actually be bled, but he has huge resistance, so I wanted to try a really fast bleed weapon against him, so it's finally time to use the legendary Sword of Ian and hopefully paint the ground with Calamite's blood. The only drawback with this weapon is the range is super short, so we have to really get up in Calamite's grill. We did manage to get the bleed, but it took a huge amount of hits to activate it, so it definitely wasn't worth it. This was the longest fight of the run so far, but after nearly 7 minutes of chipping at Calamite's ankles, he goes down. The DLC is sorted, so let's go clear off the Lord Souls. For Nito, the Silver Knight Spear is our weapon of choice. It's one of a small selection of weapons that has built-in divine status, meaning killing these skeletons lays their spirits to rest for good. I'm not sure why only the spear has divine but the sword doesn't, but anyway, with them dead, Nito is fine apart from one moment where I didn't have the space to get away from his AoE. A couple minutes later, he's down. In the Duke's archives, I now get one shot by the archers, which is awesome. I decided to take down Scythe the Scaleless with the Seath. This confusingly named weapon, even more confusing after that last sentence, hits Seath for decent damage when you smack him in the crotch, and is fast enough to sometimes get 4 hits in. I tried to decipher what Seath was saying as he died, but I couldn't really make it out. Last up is the 4 Kings, and you probably knew this was coming, but it's Quelaag's Fury Sword. This weapon scales with liquid humanity, so I've got 10 in there for max damage. Have I mentioned before that I really don't like this fight? The thing that kills it for me is the RNG, where they sometimes just spam the explosion attack multiple times in a row, delaying you from killing them quick enough before another spawns. This becomes especially infuriating in New Game Plus cycles with how huge a health buff they get. I guess you could call that RNG plus. I also found some situations where even though I'm close, their attacks do max damage instead of the reduced amount they should do. But finally, I got an attempt where the RNG was in my favour, no nonsense went down, and we slashed each king down before another could spawn. This weapon looks cool, does great damage, and just feels very unique. I'm kinda sad they never brought this back in the future games, to be honest. So finally for Gwyn, we use the Silver Knight Tracer due to its 160 critical stat. With the Hornet Ring as well, Each parry does a nice chunk of damage, so just 5 parries is enough to hand Gwyn a disgraceful defeat. So as we set ourselves on fire, let me tell you about this last cycle. We can only level the resistance stat. We still have to use a different weapon for each boss, but anything goes as long as it's not a weapon we've already used during this run. Things might get a bit silly at points. First weapon we're going to make use of is the Notched Whip. It's a bleed weapon, so great for these easily bled demons. Even the normal damage is actually pretty decent, to be fair. After whipping the Asylum demon in the bottom a few times, he becomes just another notch on our bedpost. Over in Firelink Shrine, we can get a grand total of 1 point into resistance. After killing a few hollows in Undead Burg, we've got enough for one more, so yay, I guess? Remember how I said anything goes? Well, that includes cheese! I upgraded the short bow, and now it's time for Quelaag. You probably know what's coming. We run to this corner next to the stairs, aim at her body, and fire away. It's a short fight, and our arrows easily disembowel Quelaag. She deserves it. I feel no remorse. Bell 2 is rung first this time, and as we're here, let's do Ceaseless. We just need to... Okay, no more messing around. Ceaseless got a huge buff in New Game Plus Plus it seems, so let's take this seriously. Power Within boosted, bare fists. It's a tense fight, but thankfully we punch our ticket to victory. We level up to 14 resistance, grab the longbow, and kill the Berapuma Knight who drops a greatsword for some reason. Why the hell would he drop that? He's not wielding it. Gogs are in the area, so it's time for the Demon Spear with a Power Within boost. That lightning damage is looking nice. To be fair, this is unupgraded because I don't want to waste Demon Titanite on it. Maybe I'll use a different weapon. Okay, how's this for appropriate? The Gargoyle's Halberd. With Power Within active, this weapon becomes too big a halberd for these 2 Gargs to bear, dealing massive damage. This probably seems like overkill, but bear in mind most attacks are going to one-shot me at this point, so we've got to get through by any means necessary. Bow number 1 is rung, but second this time, even though it's the first spell. What? We get ourselves some tail and end up with this trusty Drake sword. Reminds me of some clickbait video I saw on YouTube saying it was the worst noob weapon. What kind of casual would make a video like that? Down in the lower burg, I grabbed the Mail Breaker. Not sure why I'd want to destroy someone's post, but anyway, I'm now ready for the Capra Demon fight. This is going to be tough, so time to break out the big guns. Okay, honestly, I've actually never done this before and I really wanted to because this fight just sucks. Capra deserves to be fired for this absolute bomb. Try this yourself if you've got a bow and a whole bunch of firebombs. Just aim for this spot and throw away to your heart's content. In a similar vein, I debated doing the Taurus Demon Cheese where he jumps off the bridge, but I tried it for a while and he just wasn't feeling it. Plus, I still have this Demon Spear I need to use and it does a better job against Taurus than the Gargs. This was pretty straightforward, but don't worry, I've got bigger aspirations for the rest of this run. Down in New Londo Ruins, these ghosts get pancaked until one of them kindly decides to drop the Jagged Ghost Blade. While we're here, Ingwood becomes Fly Ingwood, so we've got the key to the seal for later. I then mission back to Darkroot Garden to kill Anna Faris for the Black Bow of Faris. You can probably guess what's going to happen next. We activate the Sif fight, quit out the game, and then shoot Sif from a distance with poison arrows. Taking out animals in these woods with this bow could be described as deforestation. This took over 10 minutes to do, so in hindsight, it probably would have been quicker to just melee kill Sif, but at least I don't have to suffer seeing Sif die up close this time. Before leaving the forest, we take out Shiva to get his Murakumo curved greatsword, and of course get ourselves up to a cheeky 15 resistance. So let's head back to the asylum to make use of our Jagged Ghost Blade. Again, because it's a bleed weapon, I don't even bother upgrading it because, well, we all know what the Stray Demon is like with bleed weapons. He didn't stand
a ghost of a chance.
I've got the moves like Jagged, it seems. We grab the doll, and now it's time for the most painful fight of this whole run. You probably knew this was coming. I did make it harder on myself by using the Black Knight Halberd, objectively the worst weapon in the game, but that's not the real issue. The damage from the Kings now is through the roof, which means that they can one-shot me with many of their attacks. This issue is compounded by the health drain from Power Within. Even at full health though, with full Havel's armor on, the explosion attack does one-shot me. If only there was a way I could increase my defenses even more. Hey, wait a minute. This is it. For the first time ever, resistance is actually going to be useful in a challenge run. Here we go. So it was clear that Havel's armor wasn't helping. I opted to go for light rolling so I could at least hopefully escape from the explosion. This definitely helps, but not when their attacks randomly do more damage despite me being close, or when one of their magic projectiles continues to fly around and happens to be positioned right behind me just as they start doing the explosion, meaning I roll right back into it. So after a lot of deaths, and I mean a lot of deaths, I finally got some good RNG++. The king did do the explosion, but I was able to roll away and avoid it. The combo of the Black Knight Halberd and Power Within meant the damage was enough, but it still took a good number of hits to bring down a king, especially so after Power Within wore off. I was so nervous that some BS was going to happen at the end here, especially when this hit whiffed, but thankfully, these royal pains can't resist me anymore, and this one is over. So onto a much easier fight, the Gaping Dragon. A much easier underdraking thanks to how easy this boss is, but I am using the unupgraded Drake Sword, so damage is pretty low. But barring any horrendous mistakes, we use this Dragon Forge weapon to forge on to victory past this dragon. After getting rid of an overexcited fan of the channel, we introduced Sigurd to a whole lot of fun. I thought he was going to drop something, so I quit out and reloaded, but there was nothing there. Oh well. A weird thing did happen though, thanks to me quitting out. I had killed the lightning shooting snake man up here, and obviously quitting out resets enemies to their original positions, even if they're ragdoll corpses, but for some reason this guy was like hanging from the doorway by his face. Creepy. Anyhow, as there's giant enemies at the top of the fortress here, it felt logical to use the giant's halberd, which has built-in lightning damage. Its moveset isn't all that special, it's just a slower halberd apart from the R2 doing a giant poke. One puts the golem in stagger mode, and the second topples him over. Damage is good as the golem doesn't resist elements very much. He goes down easy, and afterwards these imps give me a how bird's eye view of Anor Londo. I've got a nice weapon for this section, the Life Hunt Scythe. Of course it's Babs' favourite Dark Souls 1 weapon. I get it upgraded with some Demon Titanite, and we're ready to go. Ornstein and Smo. I mean, it goes without saying that I'm basically always one mistake away from death. This was pretty tough, probably less bad than the Four Kings, but still not great. Getting one shot is just a way of life now. This whole run has been like the anti-one shot run. Anyway, if you don't know about the Life Hunt Scythe, it has huge bleed but also inflicts bleed on the user gradually with each hit. I'm actually wearing the Bloodbite ring to mitigate this a bit. Ornstein is pretty resistant to bleed unlike Smo, so it made sense to take him out first and do Super Smo in the next round. I use the R2 as I prefer the horizontal swing. The damage is great, and it actually only takes 6 swings to bring down Ornstein in phase 1. For Super Smo, staying close is the best way, and being mindful of his hammer. I had issues before with the Great Scythe hitting the hammer and not him, so when I did a running attack, I'd always ensure to run towards his left side to avoid it. It still did happen a few times, but less so than the Great Scythe because I think the Life Hunt Scythe is smaller, so it didn't impact me too much. Otherwise, the Scythe moveset is great, and we relentlessly hunt Smo until we end his life. The Lord Vessel is ours once again. We walk back to Andre and upgrade the Sunlight Straightsword we got from Solaire. That will come in handy later, but for now, it's Moonlight Butterfly. I could have just used a bow again, but instead, I went for the Dragon Slayer Spear. In the one-hand mode, the R2 attack fires out a lightning projectile, allowing us to hit the butterfly from a distance. The damage isn't amazing, but at least I don't have to wait for it to land to do damage. This made the fight go a lot faster and feel more fun. I mean, as fun as the Moonlight Butterfly can ever be. We slayer this butterfly for an inspirational win. I then got Karth to take me to Firelink Altar, opening all the doorways with the Lord Vessel, and prepared for the Izalith boss gauntlet once again. For the Demon Fire Sage, the absolute best way I could think to kill him was by poking him to death with the Demon's Catalyst, his own weapon. The poke does thrust damage, so I wear the Leo ring to boost thrust damage counterattacks on the super rare occasions it might help. The Catalyst does fire damage, and for whatever reason, the Demon Fire Sage doesn't resist fire, so the damage is actually pretty good. Sure, the range is low and it's kinda slow, but if this weapon is the catalyst for comedy, then I'm all for it. The last of these repeat demons dies. For Centipede Demon, I decided to use the Murakumo for no other reason than I remember my guy Nathan from NG Plus fighting the Centipede Demon with this in his video where he beat the Dark Souls 1 bosses in alphabetical order, so shout out to him. As for me, I've never used this weapon before, but I kinda like it. It swings fast for a big weapon, has a good range, and a cool moveset. There's very few curved greatswords in Dark Souls 1, so nice to use a rare weapon type. We chuck Centipede Demon to the ground like we're a Murasumo wrestler and another boss closer to the end of this run. We then use the true starting weapon to send the Bed of Chaos off to a special hotel, the Straight Sword Hilton. Yay, 80 resistance. I chin off the Hydra quickly, but then go back to Anor Londo to smack Gwyndolin on the chin. Chindolin? Dragonbone Fist is, as its name suggests, a fist weapon that you can make with the soul of the Iron Golem. Its R2 is literally a Street Fighter style uppercut, which is hilarious to see. I opted to use only this to win the fight, and thankfully there was just enough time to pull it off if you're tactical with how you approach Gwyndolin, that is to say when he's doing the bow attack. Gwyndolin kindly did this a few times, throwing as a Dragon Bone, and we soon finished him off. I did also have Gwyn's weapon, the Great Lord's Sword, which I really wanted to use, but once again I had no Demon Titanite to upgrade it. It's a bit disappointing that it's not all fiery like when Gwyn wields it. Anyway, I had to use it for a weaker boss, so Priscilla is our lucky victim. Even unupgraded, the damage is still decent to be fair, and using the Grand Landlord's Sword, we evict Priscilla and cross off her breed for good. But the actual worst fight in the run was still to come. This fight was terrifying to think of. There was only one option for it. I had to praise the sun. Donning Solaire's armor and his Sunlight Straight Sword, I used the power of Jolly Cooperation to summon my friend Cetra to help, as this battle was too frightful to face alone. First, Cetra used his Channeler's Trident to buff me to make sure we could do some decent damage. Then, I used Power Within and we charged onwards. Pinwheel was waiting. After a strong early assault, Pinwheel escaped and nearly took us out with a fireball. With sweat pouring down my brow, Cetra and I made several heroic dodges and finally got the win, seeing the sunlight at the end of the tunnel at last. Obviously this victory would have no way been possible without Cetra, so to thank him, I've left a link to his latest SoundCloud mix in the description, so make sure to go to it and leave a comment on it saying, "Praise the sun." We head into Tomb of the Giants, reboot for a patch, and prepare for Nito with the Divine Pack Saddle Sword. This weapon wasn't great honestly, really slow and it took 3 hits to kill the skeletons. I could have made it stronger of course, but couldn't be bothered farming White Titanite at this stage, so I just slogged through. The damage to Nito was pretty weak, so this took quite a while. Not a fan of this weapon, but this also probably wasn't ideal circumstances to use it, so there we are. In the Duke's Archives, we kill the golem for the pendant, and while dying to Seath, I get the inspiration for what weapon to use to kill him. It requires a quick trip back to Firelink to visit Domhnall Gleeson, who happily sells us the Crystal Greatsword. Seath loves crystals, right, so killing him with crystals would appear to be fitting. This weapon is pretty beastly in normal New Game, but here the damage has dropped off quite a bit. It's also not that big for a greatsword, but of course it's not the size of the crystal, it's how you use it. Anyway, enough crystalling, we smack Seath in his bulge repeatedly, dodging his beams. I like the R2 as it's not that much slower than the R1, but of course does more damage. A few more hits and the last Lord Soul on the last cycle is claimed. For the DLC bosses, I've of course saved the best till last to handle them in the most efficient manner possible. For our good buddy Ian, it's the Stone Greatsword which has magic as well as physical damage. It goes without saying that this does a lot of damage with each swing. At this point, Ian was pretty depressed after all these losses, so he was pretty stone-faced when he took the final hit. Taking on Knight Artorias with the Black Knight Great Axe, safe to say it's night time. Tremendous damage with each swing, but of course it's very slow. The normal R1 also has kind of a weird swing, which means it has less range than you think it does. The last section was a bit intense, as I got cornered but managed to pull off a roll into a swing to fully execute Project Nightfall. As for Kalameet, it's the Black Knight Greatsword. The damage would be really good against most other bosses, but Kalameet has such high health at this point that it feels slow going. Miraculously, I somehow survived Kalameet's head swipe attack with a slither of health. I even managed to roll over his head at some point. Each swing from this weapon takes off 60% of my stamina, so I had to be careful, but in the end, we deplete his health Kalameter and win the fight. So Manus, the last DLC boss, you know what we have to do. Die, Dusk! So we drop the Lord Souls in and prepare to fight Gwyn. We'll be using the Black Knight Sword, which is just like a smaller version of the Greatsword with a tiny bit more speed to it. Not that this matters because, well, you know what we're going to do here. So that's it, the run is finished. I honestly thought this was going to be a more chill run and a bit of a break after the Dark Souls 2 magic run, but I died a lot here. Doing New Game Plus cycles with base health and stamina really makes mistakes matter. Also screw the Four Kings. With our Gwyn condition activated, we light up this Black Knight with a beautiful flame coming from our body. If you enjoyed the video, why not consider subscribing to help us hit that 100k this year. Thanks for watching. I've been JK Leeds. See ya, and have a good one. Because my sideburn-covered beauty of a character was pretty confused as to why he was being forced to do this run, I named him Derplexed. If there was a movie made about this guy, which actor would you have play him? Let me know in the comments below. We start as the Deprived class and pick the Sovereignless Soul for more levels right off the bat. And speaking of bats, here's our first weapon for the strength cycle, the Club. Premium bonking and a C scaling in strength. Perfect. We make sure to grab the Titanite shard on the way, and then head to the first boss of the run, U-Strength Gundyr. I used the Warcry weapon art to boost our damage before pulling the sword out from Gundyr's chest. The Warcry does also turn our heavy charged attack into a multi-hit attack, but I found that this usually ended with me getting punished. Actually, the normal charged heavy proved much more effective here. A few of these and a stagger or two helps to put a swift end to our first encounter. Seems Gundyr was in the club getting tipsy. Making it to Firelink, we place the coiled sword and then use the souls we got from Gundyr and our starting gift to get up to 17 strength. I had a look at the Shrine Handmaiden's wares, but really nothing caught my eye honestly. We head yonder to High Wall of Lothric, and our first task is to get some more weapons, or should I say, claymore weapons? Seems the Wyvern felt I deserved to be fired for that joke. In any case, we get the second bonfire lit and grab the shard nearby. Luckily, there is another weapon we can grab which I know will fit our needs, the ever-useful early-game weapon, the Broadsword. The Astora Straightsword is also nearby, but this weapon needs 12 faith, which of course we do not have. We continue the collectathon by grabbing the Estus Shard and Cell Key nearby, and free our buddy Grey Hamster. Now to take the shortcut back to the bonfire. I kinda felt some more upgrades might be handy, so we quickly kill Logan Paul for another Titanite Shard. But enough messing about, time to make some moves, which of course means we've got to face Vort. Now, I do want to make an effort to test out the charged heavy and weapon arts of some of these weapons, although I may not always use them if they're either repeats or just not viable. The weapon art of the broadsword is the stance, which you can follow up with different attacks depending on whether you press R1 or R2. To be honest, the damage from either of them felt kinda underwhelming. It's only a little bit more than a normal R1, which obviously doesn't cost any FP. So I actually broadly stuck with the charged heavies here because it did by far the most damage, and being under Vort made it easy enough to land them. A few of these, and a final couple of R1s sends him from the Boreal Valley to Death Valley. We pump strength up to 21 and grab the banner from Emma, letting us get to the Undead Settlement. Here, we get Loretta's bone, which we can give to Grey Mouse to open up his shop. He has a few weapons of note, but for now we're just going to buy the mace, which will likely excite some of my stream watchers. It's a classic strength weapon, starting off with a nice C scaling and works great for smacking dogs. This brings a new meaning to the term shaking like a dog, eh? We speed through the Road of Sacrifices and Crucifixion Woods. We actually really need to get a source of infinite Titanite shards ASAP. Ah nice, more weapons. We grab the Great Club from that guy, and the other gives the Exile Greatsword. The Great Club is a definite for this cycle, but the Greatsword unfortunately has a dex requirement, so won't be something we can use just yet. In Farron Swamp, as well as doing the usual stuff here, we also grab the classic Greatsword. You know, the one that references that famous anime series beginning with B? Boruto! We activate the other bonfire, and finally grab the Dream Ashes Chasers, letting us buy the Titanite shards from the Shrine Handmaiden. With some more shards purchased, we upgrade the mace to +2. Before we proceed, I want to get even more weapons. We activate this bonfire, and I then went about farming the Evangelist for the spiked mace. This actually took a lot of farming, and after getting about 10 pairs of Evangelist gloves, they finally drop what we need. But guess what? It also has a dex requirement which I didn't know about, so... yeah, but hey, at least I don't have to farm for it later. Let's go do a boss anyway, it's mace time baby! I also brought a charcoal pine bundle to give me some extra fire damage. I always like to start by popping his handball for some easy damage. It wasn't needed, but I also smashed the ball on his shin, hopefully making the final part of this fight shorter. So now, finally time to smash his balls in, leaving him under half health as we descend below. The mace did decent damage against the hand, but was somehow just long enough to smash his back balls as well after 4 hits. A few more swings and we break his emaciated fingers, allowing us to embark on the next stage of this run. The most important reward for this victory is the transposing kiln, letting us get boss weapons which we'll be using a lot of this run. For now, we just grab Vort's Great Hammer. This big frosty smashy weapon will come in handy later. Anyway, we get up to 26 strength and we upgrade the Great Club to +3. The Great Club is still, well, great. This giant crystal lizard gets crushed and we also smash up the NPC enemy here for the Butcher Knife. So glad this weapon made a return. There's also the Brigand daggers here, which I guess I'll grab as well. I remembered at this point about the Estus Shard and Silver Serpent Ring back at Firelink, so now we're all set. So, which boss to try the Great Club on? Well, the Crystal Sage is here. I'm sure this is going to be really fun with base health. Right? Honestly, this fight really grates on me. Yep, can't wait to do this one on the higher cycles. Anyway, so here's the strat. First, Warcry before entering. I land a normal R1 followed by a charged Warcry R2 to land multiple hits. We Warcry again and land another charged heavy. At this point, phase 2 is going to start, so we pop an Ember. Next, we smash the clones with running attacks and pray we don't get killed, which did nearly happen. A charged heavy and an R1 almost finishes it. He survives with a tiny bit of health. Thankfully, I was able to get in close and land a final hit. We can finally have safe passage to the cathedral. We're now up to 32 strength, which is looking good. Just past the sage, we grab Aladdin's ashes. Sadly, they don't let us buy a magic carpet, but we can get hold of Lloyd's shield ring, giving us reduced damage when we're at full health, a crucial ring for any run where you've got low health in this game. I also brought the life ring, even though the health increase is kinda minimal, but hey, it might come in handy. Near the cathedral, we grab the Executioner's greatsword and then head inside, taking out these crazy sword women on the way. To pair with the shield ring, it seems also Lloyd left his sword ring here as well, boosting our attack at full health. I get all the necessary shortcuts unlocked, but before taking on the deacons, I helped Sigurd take out this crusty demon and grab the large club, Flynn's ring, and the Chloranthy ring. So now, we ready. It might seem odd that I'd use one of my favourite weapons to take out the Deke heads, but honestly I didn't have anything else better at this point, and it has a really nice horizontal swing that's perfect for this. The Butcher Knife at +3 does good damage and restores health with each hit, only taking a maximum of 3 hits to take out the deacons. When the head honcho spawns, I took out the blue robes very quickly so they couldn't heal him, and then pretty much R1 spammed up close until we send these cleric clowns straight to the afterknife. We get up to 35 strength, but we save some souls so we can get the Boruto Greatsword up to +3. We're still not very far on into this game, so back in the swamp we put out the third fire, and then go to take on the Stray Demon up here. A crazy thing happened here that I had no idea about until this run. I smashed him in the legs a couple times, and his legs actually shattered, leaving him unable to move much as I easily finished him off. 500 hours in this game, and I've never seen that. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen that before. It definitely made the fight much less frustrating. We get his soul of course, but the real prize I wanted here was the Great Axe. Lastly, I take out the giant lizard here for 2 more Titanite scales. That's enough crystalling for now. First Lord of Cinder, the Abyss Watchers. How will they fare against the power of Boruto? Well, on the positive side, our damage is very good, but we see the first sign of one of the big problems with the strength cycle. Every swing of these huge weapons drains a lot of our rather meager stamina bar. The weapon art there drained the entire stamina bar, and then, on instinct, I went for another attack only to find myself with no stamina to dodge, leaving us open to a swift death. Now, you might be asking yourself, if I'm going to medium roll anyway, why not wear some armor? Why are you naked? To be honest, watching this back, I have absolutely no idea. That death was karma, I suppose. For the first phase, I wait for the second one to spawn and use the distraction as an opportunity to finish him off. For phase 2, I use a very simple strategy of waiting for the jump attack, which you can easily get behind him on, and land a backstab, followed up by a charged heavy, which took him below half health. Unfortunately, I whiffed the backstab on the next opening, and even though I did get some hits in, I was punished with near death. Surviving barely, I managed to land another R1 and then a final backstab. It took real guts to pull that one off. He was going a bit berserk at the end there. With that, we get up to 40 strength already. From the Star Handmaiden, I buy the Morning Shrine and use the Abyss Watcher's Soul to get the Farron Greatsword for the deck cycle later. With more shards bought, we upgrade the Morning Star to +2 and the Large Club to +3, as well as the Vort's Hammer to +2 with the scales we've been collecting. We catacomb this next area for items, including an Undead Bone Shard before descending into the terrifying darkness of the next boss encounter. I chose the Large Club to face Wolnir because, I mean, it's not that exciting a weapon, it's just a worse Great Club really. But I guess a Large Club for a large skeleton? He actually did summon the skeletons and get his sword out. I was sort of worried I might actually die here, but thankfully we club-rocated him up good and he slid back down into the darkness nice and easy. We use his soul to get his sword, but we won't be using that one for quite a while. We gaze into the beautiful blue sky of Irithyll, take out the best doggo on the bridge, grab another bone shard, and of course some human excrement from the sewers. Yum. I decided to test out Vort's Hammer on the Silver Knights, and yeah, that is some good damage. Just above though, you know what it is, Smo's Hammer, the big daddy classic of strength weapons. Gotta save that for something good. The Londor Pale Shade actually did cause some issues for me. Seriously, why does this guy wearing cloth clothes take less damage per swing than knights wearing actual armor? What sense does that make? Seems shady if you ask me. Regardless, a few more bonks send him off to the Shadow Realm. Next, I heroically ran for my life to unlock the shortcut gate. What a brave guy. I didn't even mean to do this, but I smashed the Pontiff Knight and he dropped his curve sword. That's apparently a 4% drop rate, and I haven't even leveled luck yet. Pontiff is up next. He guards the ashes that let us buy infinite large Titanite shards. Let's try Vort's Great Hammer against him. Hey, that's some good damage. Okay, that could have gone better. I'm not sure this weapon is the one for him. Let's try a different route first and head to Smouldering Lake. On the way, we bonk down this demon thanks to a little skeleton aid. Now you might wonder, why would we want to come here? Well, there's a lot of large Titanite shards lying around. Not just that, but also some crystal lizards which can drop chunks. There's also another bone shard held by this worm. We've now got 12 large Titanite shards just from a bit of exploring, but wait, there's more. In this chest right here, 3 more to be exact. There's also another Titanite scale, and also this guy who drops the Fume Knight sword. I used to think this fight was so rigged because of how hard this guy was, but here I just bonked him into oblivion. I also finally realized that, if I was medium rolling anyway, buying some strong armor might be good, so went and bought the Black Iron armor. I decided to try the Great Axe for Pontiff this time and upgraded it to +6. With this in hand and a combination of Black Iron armor and Drang leggings, my body was ready. With some gold pine resin and Warcry, we did some pretty decent damage to Pontiff. The armor did seem to help us survive some hits as well. When the clone phase started, I was actually able to kill it in just 2 hits after reapplying the pine resin. But then, something pretty wild happened. You see, the R1 of the axe makes me bend over, and on 2 occasions I actually completely avoided any damage because his swings went right over me. I was in disbelief. With 1 hit remaining, he tried to summon again, and we ended it. I was skeptical about this axe initially, but in the end, I was grateful I chose to use it. I grabbed the Profane Greatsword with Pontiff's Soul, and hey, we hit 50 strength. Nice. Now, there was a pretty useful ring I wanted to get, and unfortunately it wouldn't come without some strife. Yep, it's duo doggo time. Now thankfully I was able to kill one without the other noticing me. I don't usually get that lucky, to be honest. We managed to take the second down after a number of hits to get the Ring of Favor. As I mentioned earlier, we can now get the Easterner's Ashes for the infinite large Titanite shards and unlock the way to Anor Londo. Keeping up with the Titanite cost of using a new weapon each boss and leveling up is becoming a little taxing. There's still more scales I can get though, so I grab another from this crystal lizard and one from up on this building above the reservoir. But now, I made a bit of a screw up. So I plan to use the Profane Greatsword on Aldrich. I upgraded it to +2 for this and yeah, it now has equal strength and dex scaling, meaning it's off the table for this cycle. I see why it's profaned, I feel like hurling some profanities myself right now. Well, Morningstar it is. I get it up to +6 in preparation. So damage is not great, even with gold pine resin. Aldrich can be bled, but he is highly resistant. Honestly, there was probably a better choice of weapon for this. He's also, at least in my book, one of the most annoying bosses to do with low health, because of that damn arrow attack. Sure, you can hide in the alcove here, but staying here and avoiding all his other attacks is pretty annoying. If you can hit the upper part of his body, you do get more damage, although that's not always possible, of course. It was hardly a star performance by this weapon, but it didn't leave me too much in mourning. After a lot of patience and a lot of running from arrows, this fight is done. I'm already dreading this on the later cycles. This is really going to suck, isn't it? Now, at this point, I decided I wanted to get all the upgrade materials available for purchase from the Handmaiden, and for that, I would need a very strong weapon. So, time to crack out the Fume Ultra Greatsword, which we get up to +2. That's right, it's Dancer time. Even at just +2, the damage is great, but we of course are mid-rolling and the timing of that against her attacks does throw me off a bit. I was pretty fuming at that death, not gonna lie. Not as fuming as I was about this one though, I really thought I'd killed her there. My favourite thing to do with the sword is the charged R2 for the big smash poke. Good damage and great range, so it hits even if I'm not right up close. For phase 2, I didn't feel as confident to do this as she could respond too quickly with 2-hit combos that mean instant death. The only time I did one was after the double dark AoE she does sometimes, but for the rest, running R1s worked great. I did do another charge after her jump attack even though I paid for it, but luckily a running heavy ended this one, fumigating this room of Dancer's presence. With a good chunk of souls, we now reach 55 strength and proceed into Lothric Castle where there's Titanite chunks aplenty, as well as some cheap deaths. But also there's Titanite scales here, including 3 from this crawling mimic. Is this the only mimic of this type in the game? I don't recall seeing any other crawling ones around. With the shortcut unlocked and some better armor equipped, it was time to hopefully put Vort's Great Hammer to use. Dragon Slayer armor is weak to both strike and frost, so this hammer is a good choice for him, sometimes proccing frost in a single hit. Unfortunately, he can proc death on me with a single hit also, so that's not great. Same with the post-pooper pest projectiles. Also, what was this hitbox here? I guess a shockwave, but still seems a bit fishy to me. So if that footage didn't hammer it home enough, I can't afford to make a mistake here. I popped an ember early to help me survive a little. Now, in hindsight, could I have taken an alternate route to get more Titanite scales first? Perhaps, but I wanted his weapon to help me make that route a little bit easier, so this seemed logical. Plus, compared to a lot of other late game bosses, most of his attacks are fairly predictable. The 3-hit combo is by far the best for an easy punish. There was one point at the end where I have no idea how I survived. I got hit from behind by a butterfly projectile, then while dodging his onslaught, I rolled into a laser beam I didn't see, but somehow got through and healed. After that, one more frost proccing hit, and another normal hit thankfully ended this one. So now, we can get his weapon, the Dragon Slayer Great Axe. Lightning damage should be quite handy here. We also pumped strength to 60, which will be about where we leave it so we can focus on buying upgrade materials. Speaking of upgrades, we get the axe up to +2, grab the Knight's Ring from this room here, and then get ourselves 3 more Titanite scales from this chest. We made our way into the Consumed King's Garden, a pretty frustrating area overall. But hey, at least the knights are gracious enough to drop it down for us. Ouch, that looks very painful. So Osiris the Cuttlefish King is up next. I was predicting this fight to be unpleasant because of how wild he goes in phase 2, but surprisingly, this was one of the easier fights so far. Our damage was great, which of course helped, and staying underneath him meant that he mainly did quite easy to avoid attacks. I actually only had to deal with the charge once, and we survived it thankfully. Towards the end, I did some jumping heavies for extra damage, and finished off this dragon in short order. I quickly went to unlock the Irithyll dungeon bonfire, easily smashing Dark Souls 2 on the way by walking around him and bonking him with my hammer. I then returned to the room beyond Osiris, where I made a pan snake, got the Path of the Dragon emote, and grabbed some more Titanite scales lying around in the chests. Now, I don't intend to use Smo's hammer for the boss of Irithyll dungeon, but I just really wanted to smack these stupid jailers. The dungeon also has some other goodies worth our time, like another Estus shard and the pickaxe. Thankfully, we don't need to make a pig eat some mushrooms to get it this time. We get this rodent to make an irrational decision to jump down this hole, and then partake in some light meditation to enter Archdragon Peak. So for once, we can actually plunge Ancient Wyvern given we're doing melee here. I didn't really want to waste a good weapon for this, so I just used the unupgraded Warpick. The worst part is having to run through this gauntlet of enemies to get there. Stopping to kill them feels like a surefire way to get fried, but not killing them means that BS like this happens. His axe on a chain hit me through the floor. What the Izalith is this? Anyhow, next attempt we make it past, pick our spot, and wage war on this Wyvern's grey matter for the easy one-shot. No wasted motion here. In his arena, we can also grab the Ring of Steel protection. Crazy how late in the game you get this. Well, time to get our first +9 weapon, the pickaxe. No, I'm not joking. It's actually kinda decent, the fastest of the great hammers even if the damage is lower. We easily stunlock this knight and claim the Drakeblood greatsword for use much later. This area is full of upgrade materials like twinkling and scales, but the main prize is a little further ahead, just beyond the third bonfire of the area. We at last grab the Dragon Chaser's ashes, narrowly surviving the escape. These ashes unlock chunks, twinklies and scales in the Handshot Maiden Shrine. Having the full stock here will be very useful. I didn't quite fancy the Nameless King just yet, so opted to make my way to the Profane Capital, once again finding another Dark Souls 2 reference like a constant looming reminder of the contest. But what weapon to use for Yhorm? Well, for some reason, I decided on the Reinforced Club. I don't really know why. Yhorm can't be bled, so that makes the club's bleed kinda useless, but whatever. I bought some Titanite chunks to turn it into the Reinforced Club, and then returned to the capital to get more weapons. First the Eleonora from this Monstrosity of Sin, and then I farmed the Gargoyle Flame Hammer from this gargoyle near the bonfire. I had some more souls thanks to the farming, so we get the club up to +8, and now it's finally time for Yhorm. Thanks to the recent torch run, I felt pretty confident about my strategy. Stay in between his legs, bait the two-hand slam, walk out of the way, walk back in and hit the hands. Repeat until you stagger him and land the critical. The club did a lot more damage than the torch unsurprisingly, so it reinforced my decision to use it even if the bleed was totally wasted. When he trans-Yhorms into his second phase, things don't really change much honestly. He can do the shockwave when you're underneath him sometimes, but the follow-up is easy to dodge. After about 7 minutes, this fight is over. Actually way more fun than just using the Storm Ruler. With his soul, we of course can grab an absolute beast of a strength weapon, Yhorm's Great Machete. We'll save that for later, but for now, I've got some questions I'd like to axe the old Demon King. I'd really like to pick his brain, you know? Damage from the pickaxe was really good. Honestly, this fight should have ended in about 90 seconds, but I somehow kept missing the opportunity to attack near the end. Probably got too cocky. But anyway, I finally got it, and this time made sure to get well away from him as he exploded before running back in for one final hit to end this one. If you're wondering why I upgraded the pickaxe to +9 just for old Demon King, I don't know man, I was really sleep deprived when I did this run. I used his soul to get the old King's Great Hammer, which to be honest, we didn't end up using this cycle, but don't worry, it will have its time. For now though, I was planning to take on Champion Gundyr next. I wanted something a bit faster, so I went with the Eleonora axe we got earlier. So the good news is that it has the same quirk that the Great Axe has against Pontiff Sulivan, meaning we can duck under some swings. Doesn't work very well with uppercuts though. The weapon art gives us a short-lasting buff that gives the blade the bleeding effect and restores our health on each hit. I found this to be a bit too short-lasting to be useful to be honest. I never managed to actually hit Gundyr enough times while it was active to proc bleed. So I decided to Eleo-ignore the weapon art altogether and just did it the old-fashioned way, dodging and weaving between his attacks, occasionally trading hits. The axe did okay damage, and after a near choke at the end from his smack and shoulder tackle, I landed the finishing blow. In Dark Firelink Shrine, I purchased the Priestess Ring. I debated whether to allow the stat boosting rings for this run, but I figured that it does unlock a couple of more unique weapon options, so it was fine to use it to keep things interesting. We can also use Gundyr's Soul to get an excellent boss weapon, Gundyr's Halberd. We'll save that for a rainy day, and in the meantime upgrade the Gargoyle's Flame Hammer. This led to a bonk off with Havel, which, let's just say he won. After taking out my aggression on this innocent rock lizard, I decided to try out a new and much cheaper tactic, getting Havel to fall off the ladder. After a bit of fiddling, he finally fell, leaving him one hit from death. One further strike turns Havel to gravel and rewards me with his weapon. So now at last we can take on the Nameless King. But what to use? Well, I had originally thought about the Gargoyle's Flame Hammer, but I wasn't really feeling it for this fight. So, alternate plan. Onto the Grand Archives. The main reason is there's a lot of Titanite scales here. I know I can buy them now, but 20k each is pretty expensive. There's also a hidden Titanite slab you get access to after pulling this lever, and the Scholar's Ring behind this bookcase. The 3 NPC guys did cause me some issues, especially when they troll you hiding behind the lift like this. But eventually, I took them out and claimed some more new weapons for myself. I also grabbed the Avalyn to trade for scales and the Hunter's Ring from the top of the building. The reason I wanted the Hunter's Ring is because I want to use Gundyr's Halberd. It's clearly a strength weapon with its B scaling in strength, but it requires 15 dex to wield, so this ring is needed. With the scales we've gained, we get the Halberd all the way to +4. By being naked, we could actually light roll with the halberd, which I was very happy about. Except when I choked and messed up the dodge, of course. For phase 1, I went in unembered and hit this tall bird with our halberd. Quite easy to do thanks to the overhead strike this weapon has. The weapon art of the halberd does a forward charge, but honestly I just didn't fancy taking the risk as it leaves you pretty open. For the Nameless King fight, I was pretty worried about getting one shot given our lack of armor, so I did the only sensible thing. I beat the fight hitless. To be honest, I wasn't even intending to do this, but with his damage we were really outgunned here, so I was pretty cautious, waiting only for the attacks I knew I could safely punish, namely the flying stab attacks. The charge up lightning strike is also a good one if you roll through it towards him. With a few more swings, this Lord of Gwynder is defeated. I'm pretty proud of that one. Keeping our weapon stock building, why do I have handprints on my behind? What the hell did Nameless King do to me there? Anyway, we grab the Dragon Slayer spear from below and convert his soul into a weapon. His spear sadly has too high a faith requirement to ever use, so we'll settle for the Storm Curve Sword. We also use some chunks to upgrade our Gargoyle Flame Hammer to +9. Let's see how this weapon fares against the Twin Princes, another boss that tends to be a bit tricky in challenge runs. Honestly, this didn't start too well, but our damage is pretty good, and the Flame Hammer swings faster than you might expect, and actually did manage to stagger Lorien. The wide swings of the weapon also work great for the second phase, able to often hit Lothric as well as Lorien. Thanks to the combination of these swings and the high damage, this ended up being pretty easy, and I actually got through the Twin Princes on my first attempt. They goggle on my flames as we hammer home our victory. We of course grab Lorien's greatsword with the Prince's soul, and then upgrade Smo's hammer to +4. That's right, it's finally time to use this beast. We fill up all the thrones with the Lord's Ashes and prepare for the final base game boss. So, it would appear Smo's hammer is similar to Dark Souls 1. The damage is huge, but it obscures so much of the damn screen that at points I can't even see Soul of Cinder. Also, we're of course forced to mid-roll again, but I'm kinda used to that by now. Mostly. 3 swings from the hammer is enough to get the stagger, pretty handy especially in phase 1. We blast his health down quite quickly, Smo vertly swinging wildly at points. For phase 2, the opportunities to attack are fewer as he can respond quite quickly, and the last thing I want is to get caught by the multi-hit attack. I stick to 1 hit each time here because it's too risky otherwise. I actually managed to miss once, which is pretty wild given the size of this thing, but with enough patience, one final swing is game smover for this boss. Of course, we still have the DLC to do. I decided to actually tackle the Ring City DLC first. There's good logic behind this to be fair, so stay with me. First, we send this angel back to heaven to make movement a little easier so that we can grab the Ring of Steel Protection +3, the first of several +3 ring variants in this DLC, which will be highly useful for the run. I then flawlessly nail the swamp skip jump. I of course mean I purposely did that because I need some stuff from the swamp. With the angel over there dead, I grab the Ring of Favor +3. We then smash this pyromancer with Yorm's machete. It was kinda Zovakill to be honest, but I enjoyed it. Now, with some heavier armor and Yorm's machete, I was almost ready for the Demon Prince. I actually opted to get this up to +5 for this one, as I predicted it would be one of the tougher bosses of this cycle. Our damage against these demons is some of the best I've ever seen against them. The biggest problem though? Getting one shot. Serves me right for trying to save my Ember until phase 2. Doing over 500 damage with a hit to this guy is really good, but unfortunately his relentless fireball Yormations got the best of me on a really close attempt. The other issue that compounds the potential one-shots is the stamina situation. One swing takes off over half my stamina, but the good news is that staying below these demons reduces that pain, and with enough hits we can even open them up for a crit, doing monster damage. For Demon Prince, this still works to a degree, but he has many attacks designed to catch you, like the fireball, the slam, or jumping back for the laser. Providing you're close enough, you can just about manage to run behind him as he starts the laser for some free hits, but it's pretty close when you're mid-weight. With enough charged hits though, we poise break him for a critical, and a couple further hits after put an end to this one. It was tough, but that was a mere teaser of what's to come. Before proceeding further into the Ring City DLC, there's something I want from the Ashes of Ariandel DLC. Climbing this tower, we can get one of the best weapons in the game for SL1 runs, the Millwood Battle Axe. With this upgraded to +8, we're ready. We get imposingly lifted down to the Ring City, and honestly, at this point I was ready to be done with this cycle, so I pretty much just speed ran through. Midir did pose a small couple of problems, but nothing a few axe hits to the face couldn't solve. We grabbed the Chloranthy ring +3, and then shortly after I realized I never equipped the Steel Protection ring +3. That probably would have helped with the demons. Oops. I grabbed the +3 variant of Havel's ring from the swamp, and then take out this Ring City Knight to get the awesome Ring City paired greatswords. But now, of course, we have to do my least favorite boss, Half-Light. I had decided on the Millwood Battle Axe for this encounter, but honestly, it was a bit too run-of-the-mill wood to pull this one off. This fight was pretty annoying, especially having to listen to this guy talking bollocks every single time. Just shut up, Adjudicator. Go fuck yourself. Half-Light can very easily two-shot me quicker than I can even blink thanks to my low health. After a number of frustrating deaths, I decided a different approach might be needed, so I thought I'd give Lorien's Greatsword a try. There's one feature it has which I think might just get the job done. The Charge Heavy is a big poke just like Fume Knight's sword. This is actually my favourite thing about using Ultra Greatswords in this game. So here's the strat. First, I use the weapon art to buff the sword with fire at the start of the fight. Then, as the first Ian the Painting God spawns, get behind him and land the backstab. Do a charged heavy as he's getting up, then do another charged heavy almost right away so it hits him when he gets up, killing him outright. Now for Half-Light. Get him in a position where he's walking towards you, but not holding his sword in the sheath, and let off a charged heavy to smack him down. At half health, another Ian spawns in, so just assault him brutally and do not let him heal. Then, again get a charged heavy in as he walks towards you. You can actually follow up with another one as he's getting up, and then another one again. I would have been able to do a fourth, but I ran out of stamina and he broke out of the chain, but luckily, I landed another right after. I wish I had a DeLorean to go back in time and just do this strategy from the start. Moving swiftly on from that, let's do Midir with the paired greatswords we got earlier. Yeah, my ears definitely ringed after that one. So this was my first time since maybe my first ever DLC playthrough where I fought Midir with medium roll. It's definitely a situation where you cannot get greedy. Here it had been ages since I'd attacked and I went for it at a time I definitely shouldn't have. I stuck with the L1 attack here to poke with both greatswords as it covers good distance and Midir is weaker to thrust attacks. The distance covering is especially useful for running around and getting a hit in after Midir's fire attacks. I think the luckiest moment came when I ended up against the wall after one of his attacks, and the hit I landed in the opening actually got the stagger for the critical. A few more after this, and we left Midir physically impaired, and victory was ours. Okay, last boss of the Ring City, 3 left total for this cycle. What to use for Slave Knight Gale? Well, initially I tried with the Dragon Tooth, but to be honest this is not a fight where I want to be mid-rolling if I can help it, given I already only dodged some of these attacks by the skin of my teeth. So, Millwood Battle Axe it is. High speed swings and quick recovery, what more could you axe for in an intense battle such as this one? From Millwood to Thrillwood. Jokes aside, this was fun. I didn't even attempt any charged heavies here because it just wasn't worth it, especially in the latter phases. There were still a couple of close calls, and I wasn't going to be surviving many hits from him, but one-shots were less of a danger here than against the demons or Midir. So, with enough dodging and swinging through, we put a stop to his Gale Force winds, and we're enslaved by this DLC no longer. So, another reason I wanted to do Ring City first is so we could get Gale's greatsword to use. A fun weapon for sure. Well, back to Ariandel we go. I confront my deep-rooted fear of heights, before finally making it to the bottom. Now, we take on the champion's Grave Tender using the Dragon Tooth. We give the dogs a good bonking, this last one proved tricky to actually hit for some reason though. With just the champion at least for now, I actually broke his guard and landed a critical, followed by a heavy attack shortly after. When he summoned the wolf, I actually broke his guard again, got another crit, and then landed another heavy, thankfully killing him before the wolf got fully involved in our business. This weapon may be slow as hell, but at least the range and damage are good. I got pretty lucky here as I managed to break the wolf's poise just before he got to his second phase, landing a critical which nearly killed him outright. As he went back and howled, I landed a charged heavy to finish him off. We fought Dragon Tooth and Nail here, but in the end, we got it done. So, one final boss for this cycle. I get Gale's greatsword up to max upgrade for this one. Let's see how it fares. But first, we gotta do Sir Wilhelm. Thanks to the poke strat we use with Half-Light, he lets out a Wilhelm scream and dies shortly after. On the way through the mountains, we grab the Earthseeker axe which we'll use later and unlock the way to Frida. Truly a worthy final boss for this cycle. The first phase, I focused mainly on getting backstabs when she went invisible and charge pokes whenever she did her jump. Damage was good indeed. For phase 2, as always, we focus on Father Ariandel, except when Frida heals where we give her a good poke. With enough hits, we poise break Ariandel and land a crit to finish off this phase. Now Gale's sword has a really cool weapon art where you jump and spin around, and on one attempt I tried to use this to finish Frida off in phase 3, but missed and she killed me. A real Gale-ya on my part, and one I won't be repeating. Her invisibility is still the best opening, getting a backstab with a charged heavy follow-up is absolutely beautiful damage. I did manage to land the weapon art combo this time, which I was pretty happy with. Best not to try these things out when it's going to be the decider between victory and defeat, I guess. With one last invisibility attack, we land the backstab and the charged heavy to defeat the final boss of the strength cycle, with Frida at last! Right, so we have some things to do before this next cycle. First, we take out this guy for the Uchi Katana. And then I upgrade as many weapons as I could be bothered to do, but no higher than around +6 for normal weapons and +2 for special weapons. We then set ourselves on fire as is customary to cleanse away all that dirty strength main aura, and we find ourselves back in Cemetery of Ash for the deck cycle. It's only going to get tougher from here. By the way, thanks for watching this crazy marathon video. If you make it to the end and you end up enjoying it, maybe consider joining those subscribed to the channel. We'd love to have you, but even if you don't decide to, thanks for watching regardless. So for Gundyr, we'll be using the basic dagger. Even at +6, the damage is pretty weak, but I guess that's to be expected. We can quick step with the dagger to avoid some hits, but mainly we just ask Gundyr if he likes the cut of our jib. I don't think he got the point, but regardless, the first boss of the U dexterity cycle falls soon after. Pretty tragic, but the souls we got from him aren't even enough to level up once. Thankfully we got some souls to pop so we can get 1 point of dex. Hooray! With my weapon stock sorted, I decided that the +3 spear would be our first weapon of choice, and we jump back into Lothwall of Hyrule. There's no need to delay, so let's get straight into Vort. This weapon was okay, I guess? I mean, it's not the most inspirational, that's for sure. You poke with it, and it pokes at a decent speed without using too much stamina. Well, maybe the damage could be a bit better than that, but it is only +3 in New Game Plus, so what are you gonna do? We stay under Vort for the most part, stabbing him right in his Boreal Valley at points. A few hits later, and down he goes. Back in Firelink, we go up to an absolutely astonishing 12 dexterity. I decided to try a very different route this time, so... Is it a bad time that I'm struggling to even kill Emma with this weapon? Dancer looks especially pissed this time. So I had this great idea about killing Dancer with the Bandit's Knife. Low damage, short range, quick attacks, bleed potential. I don't know, sounded like fun. But after a few attempts, I actually realized that the Bandit's Knife for some reason has equal scaling in strength and dex, so unfortunately I banned it from this cycle. I probably should actually look at the scaling stats instead of assuming. Victory stolen from me once again. Uchi Katana it is. I actually swapped my setup around to give myself the Hunter's Ring so I could actually wield this, given it needs 16 dex, and I also made sure I could light roll. Weirdly, the damage was not that much better than the Bandit's Knife, but hey, at least the range was better. Phase 1 was pretty chill, walking behind her and slashing her right in the Gucci with my Uchi worked well. We even managed to proc bleed. Phase 2, however, has far fewer windows to attack. It was mainly running in for one hit here and there, apart from if she did the jump, or if she did the dock AoE where there was time for maybe 2 hits. It was a pretty nerve-wracking 7 minutes, knowing that one missed dodge would almost certainly be my end via her double swings, but after another dark AoE from her, I landed a charged heavy to end it. The main benefit here is the huge amount of souls she drops, allowing us to jump all the way up to 23 dex, a much more respectable number. It might have come at the cost of using up one of our good weapons already, but I feel it was worth it, and it does mean Dancer is out of the way. Through the Undead Settlement, we remember this time to grab my wife Bab's favourite weapon, the Great Scythe. We'll save that for later. For now though, we'll take on the Great Wood with our Scimitar. Honestly, this boss sucks. It semi-tarnishes the boss quality DS3 is known for. If I'd been really prepared, I would have gotten charcoal pine resin for this, but oh well. Destroying the handball was pretty easy as usual, but getting the shin one was tricky. I realised though that the second hit of the scimitar's charged heavy attack was a higher vertical swing, and using that I was able to destroy it. For the second phase, I focused first on destroying the back balls again as it seemed easier, and then turned my attention to the hand. The scimitar did decent damage and hits fast, so with a decent opening, I could do some nice numbers, and soon after I turned the Great Wood into Deadwood. With the transposing kiln back in our possession, I used the soul of the Great Wood to get Asta's spear for use later. Using poppable souls, we get up to 26 dex and then head back to the Undead Settlement. I actually made friends with the giant archer this time before going on to farm the storyteller's staff in the Road of Sacrifices. Why do we want that? I'm not telling yet. The souls we farmed let us get up to 28 dex now, and we then upgrade Arstor's spear to +1. This meant it was in fact Crystal Sage time once again. I had initially wanted to use this spear because it inflicts poison, and I had thought this would help keep the sage's health ticking down. Unfortunately though, I never found the poison was all that helpful due to how slow it was, and also the spear was only +1, which meant the damage wasn't all that great. So partway through I decided to switch to the S-Stock because it was upgraded higher and could attack quickly. This went a lot better, apart from a choke right near the end. I hate this fight. Being New Game Plus, the magic spam in Phase 2 has an even higher chance of ending me in a heartbeat. The worst attack is the Soul Shower type attack, which often seems like luck whether I avoid it or not. Here, taking out the clones is essential, so I can get a full poke combo off on the real Sage. Frustratingly, they were left close to death as they teleported away, meaning another round of projectile bullet hell. I at last managed to get the final jabs in as the Sage tried to S-stockpile more homing soul masses. Even with victory, I got hit at the end, narrowly surviving. What an outrageous load of BS. At least I only have to do this one more time. Dex gets boosted to 29, and I now upgrade the Halberd to +6. I plan to use this for the Deacons for one very specific reason, but we'll cover that later. I can also light roll with this setup, which is always nice. We take out the dogs and light the Cleansing Chapel bonfire, blitz through the graveyard grabbing the Astora Greatsword on the way, and roll like mad to get past the giant. So my ingenious plan for the Deke heads? Well, use the R2 of the Halberd to spin to win through them. But there was one issue. I underestimated how much I'd get interrupted trying to do this. Like, seriously, it got ridiculous. But then I realized something. Maybe light rolling was not the way here. Maybe what I actually needed was poise from heavier armor to allow me to get off the attack uninterrupted. This honestly did help a lot and greatly reduced the how burden doing this attack was placing on my health. By doing the attack even uncharged, I was able to sweep through large hordes of deacons, taking many out in one go and actually interrupting their attacks for a change. Continuing the assault and thinning the herd, we take down this ridiculous boss shortly after. With the washing pole now equipped and our decks racing to 31, it was time to tackle Farron Keep again. I took the time to take out these idiots on the way, even managing to get the Rotten Grue curved sword from one of them and the Rotten Grue dagger from another. Is it just me, or does Rotten Grue sound like an alternate language title for the Despicable Me movies? We once again snag the Dream Ashes chasers before preparing for the first Lord of Cinder of the deck cycle, the Abyss Watchers. Washing Pole is a pretty awesome weapon all things considered. The range is just beautiful and it offers some decent damage too. Feels great doing this fight with a fast weapon. Backstabs once again work great, especially with a charged heavy follow-up. It's not quite as epic damage as the Greatsword, but we do have the time and stamina to land a further R1 to follow this combo. The Phase 2 Watcher should really retire this jump attack because thanks to abusing the backstab window here, this guy is totally washed and soon after we knock him out of pole position with a few further slashes. Dex now reaches 33 and we head to the catacombs once again. Despite some knives in the back, we make a daring escape and I send the skeletons some cease and desist letters shortly after. So, time for Wolnir. I decided to use Valor Heart for this one, the sword shield combo the champion's Gravetender uses. I don't know about you guys, but I think this weapon kinda sucks despite looking cool. Yeah, sure it's only at +2, but the damage never seems that great, and the shield can't block all that much. I don't know, maybe it's good for PvP, but I just needed a spot to use this and this seemed as good as any. If you love it, then hey, all good. Hope you didn't take what I said to heart there. Anyway, Wolnir slides back into the darkness once again. We now arrive at Irithyll, boost our Sexterity stat to 30 dex, give this dog the cold shoulder, and this time head to Irithyll Dungeon as our first stop. We throw some cheese down this hole to lure these rats in there, and as we have the Path of the Dragon emote already, we can immediately head to Archdragon Peak. As the Ancient Wyvern again doesn't deserve a good weapon to be wasted on him, I use the Brigand Twin Daggers. The snakes here tried to throw me in the Brigand, of course I resisted, so they just killed me instead. Next time, I made it up and executed a Spider-Man-like dive that would have made Brigandrew Garfield proud. Onwards and upwards. It's probably pretty obvious, but the main reason I wanted to come here first was all the upgrade materials lying around, as well as those Dragon Chaser's ashes to open up the Shrine Handmaiden's shop. While we're here though, we might as well do Nameless King. Seems the forecast is cloudy with strong gwynds. Our weapon of choice here will be Onakiri and Ubadachi, a dual katana type weapon. I decided to upgrade this to +8 for this fight and also adjusted my load for light roll. L1 is the way forward here, as it attacks with both katanas. The range isn't as long as the halberd we used last time, so we did miss the Storm King's head a couple times, but overall this wasn't too much trouble. For phase 2, I did initially start using only one L1 for openings, but soon realized I could hit with 2 during some of them. I still needed to ensure I didn't get Honor carried away though, as his damage was very high. It wasn't quite hitless, but only using 2 heals is still fine, and after some beautiful slash combos, Nameless King is done already, very early into this cycle this time. So back to Irithyll, and for Pontiff Sullivan, I decided to go with the Farron Greatsword with the Hornet Ring equipped. Why, you ask? Well, this weapon can actually parry with the little dagger in the left hand. Landing a parry, a crit, and a charged heavy takes off about 40% of his health. Landing another brings him down to about 20%. He goes to summon the clone, and I land a couple more hits before dodging the clone's attack, parrying Pontiff again, and delivering the finishing blow, clearing Pontiff in just over a minute. We're not that far on into the deck cycle yet, but I'd say things are going well. Worth mentioning, I went with a full max attack setup with Flynn's Ring as well, so make sure to do that if you want to try this for yourself for whatever reason, I don't know. Now, these NPCs have some weapons I wanted, but I couldn't really be bothered to fight them, so ladder cheese it is. This nets us the Drang Twin Spears for later use. Of course, we get the Easterner's Ashes again, so now all upgrade materials are available for purchase, and we unlock Anor Londo. But before we tackle the joy that will be Aldrich, I upgrade the Crescent Axe, which has a very useful looking overhand R1, and we return to the profaned capital. That's right, it's time for Yorm. You know the strat by now, of course, but this weapon made it even easier. Not only can we hit Yorm's arm with no issue, but I realized a little way into the fight that the weapon swing is so high that we could actually hit Yorm's head when he does the slam. This does even more damage per swing and opens him up for criticals more often. This still took ages because the weapon was only +6 and Yorm gets an enormous health boost in NG+, but overall pretty easy, and after 12 minutes, we crescent Yorm to the afterlife. So I kind of feel like we haven't had the best of luck with spears so far, but then I upgraded the Dragon Slayer spear to +3, ready to take on Aldrich, who's apparently weak to lightning and thrust damage, and found that it did a terrible job. Super weak damage overall, which was very disappointing. I'll find another use for this, but yeah, these spears are really dragging their feet here. So what to use instead? Well, I thought I'd give the Pontiff Knight Curve Sword a go. I went with Lloyd's Sword Ring for more damage and an armor setup that still let me light roll. Damage was actually better from the Curve Sword than the Dragon Slayer Spear, which is pretty confusing, but I'm not going to pontificate how I feel about that now. I did try out the weapon art here, which did some more damage and also had nice range with this big frost blade. I think you can inflict frost with enough hits, but I didn't ever manage to get this to happen. Aldrich kindly didn't spam his arrows too much this time, and after a few more hits, we defeat another Lord of Cinder to keep ourselves ahead of the curve. So Lothric Castle should be our next destination, but we have a couple things to clear up first. I upgrade the Despicable Me dagger to +6, level up Dex to 38, and then go to take on the old Demon King. Really surprisingly, this guy can in fact be poisoned. Our damage was low, but the poison build-up grew with each successful hit. Of course, this still doesn't do all that much damage, but getting extra chip is always a good thing. The only hairy moment here was getting stuck underneath him as he started charging the ending explosion, but once I got away to avoid it, he was finished. Now, we move onwards into Lothric Castle. First to the Consume King's Garden, where we grab the claw weapon on the way. Now the question is, can the Dragon Slayer Spear redeem itself against Osiris? He again is supposedly weak to lightning. Okay, to be fair, while the normal R1s were nothing to write home about, the weapon art did some pretty decent damage and the charged heavy also was okay. It was enough to get the job done here anyway, and the fact the charged heavy stabs upwards helps to avoid missing Osiris' spindly body when underneath him. I wanted to finish with a weapon art, and after missing literally 3 times, we finally landed it flush to consume this slightly underwhelming weapon from our arsenal. So next up was Champion Gundyr. After upgrading Dex to 42, I debated for a while on what to use and ended up deciding on Aster's Spear. Let's see if we can redeem this one too. To be honest, this took longer than it should have. I had this incredibly frustrating moment on one of the first few attempts where I decided to use the weapon art to finish off Gundyr and somehow missed despite him being right in front of me and of course dying shortly after. It seems I had some stored up frustration as this loss led me to choking several more times, always getting caught by this uppercut attack. So Aster's Spear does have poison which we can just about proc on Gundyr. We can thankfully get 2 hits in during some of his openings, as the spear does attack reasonably quickly, which is good. The fight was still pretty intense, but after enough spirited back and forth, Gundyr falls once again. For our next weapon, we go for the Storm Curve Sword, which we get up to +4. I didn't really have a specific reason for using this here, I just wanted to give it a go. On the way up through Lothric, we grab some Titanite scales from the Mimic again, as well as from this chest here, before taking on Dragon Slayer armor. The damage from the curved sword was okay, but its fast swing meant we could get multiple hits in during Dragon Slayer armor's openings. I figured out this time how to position myself better during his falling bolt attack, which allowed for multiple hits easily. He also does this sometimes in phase 2, which is handy, so I stuck close to him trying to bait it. I nearly fell when I used a late fight Ember, but luckily was able to weather the storm, and after a few more swings, we disarmor this boss and move onwards. Remember the claw we grabbed from earlier? I've always enjoyed the claw weapons in these games, and this is my first time actually using them in Dark Souls 3. The L1 attack is super satisfying and very fast, helping to quickly proc bleed on enemies. But how would they fare against Lothric and Lorien? Well, really good actually. Because of the speed of our attack, it's quite easy to get behind them, land an L1, and then dodge the follow-up swing and repeat. As long as you don't get caught by this anyway. I mean, the damage isn't huge, but with the frequency of attacks combined with bleed potential and the ease of being able to dodge a lot of their follow-ups, this was one of the smoothest Twin Prince fights I've had in ages. I actually nearly killed Lothric after just 1 defeat of Lorien, thanks to the sheer number of hits I got in during this period. If you struggle with this boss, I highly recommend you declare Martial Claw on them and try this strategy. It was a piece of cake, or perhaps I should say, a slice of cake. There's still a few more weapons we need to finish off the Dex run, and of course how could we forget the Sellsword Twin Blades, a fan favourite amongst Dex users in this game. We get them leveled up to +8 and get the Firekeeper to open the way to the Soul of Cinder. I had initially thought to do Soul of Cinder now, but just to mix things up, I decided to head into the Ariandel DLC instead first. As always, I demonstrated my Spider-Man-like abilities to descend down these branches. Just call me Peter Parkour. Anyway, let's give the Drang Spears a try against the Champion's Gravetender. Of any of the spears we've used so far, these are by far my favourite. The L1 combo can deal a really nice amount of damage, and keeping the Gravetender from getting close to me was really satisfying, as, let's be real, all my homies hate the Gravetender. The damage against the wolf is even better. I did get jump scared by the wolf somehow being alive with his health bar looking like this, and then barely dodged him as he flew around like a boomerang, but luckily we landed a final hit to defeat our first DLC boss on the Dex cycle. Next we upgrade the Great Scythe to +9. I think you know what the plan is here. Okay, look, I swear I wasn't actually trying to cheese Wilhelm here. Honest, he actually just fell off all by himself. I wasn't even anywhere near him. You gotta believe me. Anyway, we make it to the church, and it's time for Frida once again, but this time it's a Scythe on Scythe showdown. Now, if you've ever used the Great Scythe before in this game, you know that it's honestly a shell of its former self compared to Dark Souls 1 thanks to the lower damage, the sweet spot mechanic, and the weird angle swings of the charged heavy. But that doesn't mean it's unusable. Far from it. Range is still good, and of course for phase 1 all we need is to be able to backstab anyway. Shockingly, in phase 2, it actually did manage to poise break Father Ariandel. The crit animation's iframes actually saved me here as Frida appeared out of his bowl and started attacking me. I could barely even see her. For Black Flame Frida, the long swings of the scythe come in clutch. One thing to mention, why is the scythe backstab still jamming the pole into their back? Surely there's a more logical move than that. I did try the weapon art at one point, which was a decent horizontal swing, so that's something. Anyway, one final backstab and we successfully defend our scythe style choices. I still had another weapon I'd forgotten to get, so back below the Catacombs of Karthus, I tricked this demon into killing this mimic to get the Black Blade. This weapon is the strongest katana, but has the shortest range, although that won't really matter too much. I hope anyway. So we mission through the Dreg Heap, taking out the angels on the way, and prepare for the Demon Prince. My logic for using this weapon was the bleed status it can inflict, as the demons can be bled, which overcomes their really high damage resistances. Although, a fat lot of good that does when you misread an attack and get splatted. Twice. The lower stamina use per swing was definitely nice compared to doing this with Yorm's machete. Honestly, I don't think the bleed actually procced more than once this whole fight, and that was only after a lot of hits on the demon from below. As for the Demon Prince, I hit this guy a huge amount of times, but never got a single bleed the whole fight, so Yeah, I guess that was kind of pointless. Maybe Doris's gnawing gave me too high expectations? In any case, our damage was a little lacking, but with enough hits and patience, the Demon Prince falls. So remember earlier I mentioned there was one time in the whole run I would use an infusion? Well, that time is now. The Historic Greatsword is considered a dex weapon despite having C in both scalings, and I really wanted to use it here. When you give it a sharp infusion, it gets S scaling in dex, while a heavy infusion only gives it an A scaling in strength, so to me, this counts for the dex cycle. But this is the one and only time. You'll see why I was so keen to use this shortly. Anyway, we ride down with the imps, light the bonfire, and smack Midir right in his Dark Eater. So yeah, Half-Light. This is what I wanted this weapon for. Being that it's an ultra greatsword, it has the same moveset as Lorien's greatsword, meaning we get that lovely heavy charged poke, my beloved. For the first time ever, I actually first tried Half-Light in a challenge run. The strategy was very similar to the last cycle, and honestly, I felt really good about doing this given my storied hatred for this boss. 10 out of 10, would poke again. Back at Firelink, I upgrade the Black Knight Glaive and the Hollow Slayer Greatsword. Black Knight Glaive will be our weapon of choice for Midir. I sure hope he doesn't one-shot me with a lot of his attacks now. Ow. Ow. This one especially hurt. I got fried like I was in a micro-glaive there. Now for some reason I had the bright idea of equipping the Hornet Ring, thinking it would boost my crit damage to Midir, but trust me, it did not. You just end up with him surviving and then panicking and dying. Well, you do if you're me anyway. For the winning attempt, I decided that it was best to just go all in with damage as most of his attacks one-shot me anyhow. My favourite attack windows are after he does a grab attack attempt or the end of his long combo because it's possible to land a charged heavy in both of these situations. I also like running around when he does the double bite followed by the fire spray. The tantrum attack now really scares me as getting caught by this fire is instant death. Surprisingly, I did survive one claw swipe, which was the only one I took the whole fight. After a few more hits to the head, I landed the crit and luckily managed to land the last few finishing blows as he recovered, ending the mid-irritation of this boss fight. For now anyway. We actually hadn't leveled up in a while, so I went up to 45 dex and cracked out the Hollow Slayer Greatsword for our next bout. This weapon does extra damage against hollow enemies. This includes our boy Gale, but only in phases 2 and 3. For a greatsword, the swing is quite fast, which I like. I did try out the weapon art, which is a stance that can do one of 2 different attacks, but I felt like it locked me in place too long for it to be worth it, given one slash from him takes me out thanks to the cloak after sweep. For the first phase, I snuck in a few charged heavies where I could, but can I just say how much I dislike the upward swing of most greatswords? It so often misses and seems to limit their range. For the following phases, I found the uncharged heavy was better, as this was like my beloved poke. Despite this supposedly doing 20% more damage, it didn't really feel like that much, to be honest. Seems these promises of extra damage were quite hollow, but it was a fairly safe strat and poking him repeatedly brought me some kind of weird satisfaction. No idea what that's about. Towards the end, I went for a follow-up to the heavy, but it didn't finish him. Why does this keep happening here? A running R1 ended it, and now it's just one more boss before we can upscale to the New Game Plus Plus cycle. You know what time it is? Sellsword Windblades, and they're going all the way to plus 10. Hell, I even cracked out the Gold Pine Resin for even more win. Can I not go through one boss without choking at the last minute? I was the one selling here. So confession time. I have never used these before, but I see why people like them. The speed of the swing is very satisfying, and the damage for such a fast weapon is really solid. Often, when I get a stagger in this fight, I can't capitalize all that well, but here, I can absolutely demolish his health upon a single stagger. The final third of his health in the first phase gone in an instant. Phase 2 similarly is not much issue. I probably didn't even need the Gold Pine Resin, but it looks cool. We dodge and weave with our beautiful dance of blades, and finally, we render this boss as Cinder. One more lighting myself on fire sesh, and we're... okay, not quite onto the final cycle yet. I grab Soul of Cinder's sword as well as the frayed blade with Midir's soul. I still have a couple of other things I want to get. Back in Dark Firelink Shrine, I farmed the Black Knight Greatsword with relative ease before taking a very long time to get the Black Knight Great Axe. This guy just would not drop it for love nor money. Seriously, he dropped every other possible item he could, but not the Great Axe. Finally, after about an hour, he decided to stop being a dick and dropped it for me. I then upgraded a load of my weapons to no higher than plus 6, just like last time, and I rose from my grave one final time to begin the luck cycle for this melee extravaganza. We can now at last use the bandit knife that we were denied last time, and who better than Gundyr? Honestly, maybe I shouldn't have unbanned it because wow did this demolish Gundyr. The fast bleed was insane, he could barely do anything as we sliced away at him. I mean, he is the first boss, but still, we're off to a good start and we don't even have any luck yet. And judging by the level up cost, we might not have any for a while. Just to mention again, I know using loads of hollow infusions would probably be the sensible way to go about this, but we don't do sensible here. I promise you, we will get one weapon that scales with luck though. But first time to dig out some of those weapons we were prevented from using last cycle, like the Profaned Greatsword. I mean, some fire damage there against Vort should be good, right? Using the weapon art to buff the sword with fire, and then working in those charge poke heavies right into Vort, smooth as butter. The fight ends pretty quick. Although I did let out some profanities when I realized I should have saved this for Half-Light. Oops. Well, that's a problem for future JK to worry about. But in the meanwhile, I'm going to do something I haven't done for ages. I'm actually going to speak to Yol. I normally don't take advantage of his free levels because I hate the hollowing effect on my character, but here I need him. After making my way into the settlement, I then meet up with Yol and get some levels in luck. I want to get as many as I can, so you know what that means. Yep, chucking myself off into oblivion a bunch of times. After enough of this, we can return to Yol and get up to a phenomenal 15 luck. Not that this is going to help us in any way, yet, or even at all maybe, I don't know. But while we ponder that, we might as well take out the Great Wood with the Murakumo, one of the only curved greatswords in the game. Not sure why, but the ads in the boss fight were especially annoying this time. Shame I can't activate ad block for this. Using this big sword here was probably Kumo overkill. Just look at that 3-hit spinning slash there to those back balls. Beautiful. This didn't take long, plus he doesn't deserve any more of my commentary than that. We can finally level up luck for real this time. Yay, 16 luck! Past the Road of Sacrifices, we speak to Amri, and for the first time in several years, I'm actually going to do her questline as it has the perfect reward for this cycle. Now though, armed with the spike mace we farmed ages ago, it's time once again for the horrendous and painful boss fight with the Crystal Sage. Was it bad? Yeah, it sucked, just like usual. At least for the first attempt. For the next attempt, things went surprisingly smooth actually. I decided to try and get as much damage as I could before phase 2. Using the Warcry weapon art, I was able to use the heavy attack to land multiple hits and actually land a bleed right before the Sage disappeared for the phase transition. This time, I just rushed the Sage, somehow didn't get hit, and mowed down its health quickly enough to put an end to this final horrible encounter. The difficulty hadn't spiked as much as I was expecting here. After upgrading luck, I slap on the Priestess ring for some faith points, allowing me to wield the Earthshaker axe for the deekheads. Although the damage from the axe is decent, I really just wanted to use this for the weapon art, making them bounce up and down. This looks hilarious, but sadly the damage wasn't really enough to justify leaving myself open for attacks, and I realized I'd probably need a different weapon. So I decided to try Dancer's Enchanted Swords instead, putting on some heavier armor to give myself more poise to hopefully allow me to spin right through them. The L1 combo is excellent and mows down multiple deacons at once. It's always ideal if you can clear a lot of deacons before the main one spawns. I was a little nervous as I was still taking lots of hits throughout and only had 6 flasks by the time the Archdeacon spawned. But thankfully, my enchanting dance moves were easily enough to get me through this predicament and clear the way to victory. First try using these babies. After engaging in some Chromers with these birds in Firelink, we get some more Twinkling Titanite and use it to upgrade the Irithyll Straightsword to +3 for later. We then find our pilgrim friend who has passed on. YOLO, I guess. Anyway, Uriah is here to take his place, who thankfully sells purging stones so he can stave off this horrible shriveled ballsack look for a while. God, I hate that. We then return to Farron Keep, put out the fires, and go to face the Abyss Watchers with the Earthshaker axe. Not gonna lie, it was kinda tough going back to mid-rolling against them, but the strategy largely remains the same. I did manage to Earthshaker the 2 ads partway through the first phase though. For the second phase, we again bait the jump, but I did use Earthshaker after the backstab one time to turn this guy into an Abyss Watcher. With just a few more hits, we shake down the first Lord of Cinder on this final cycle. I felt at this point our lack of luck was really hindering our progress, so I used some poppables to get up to 20 luck and speak to Anri, who stopped by Firelink Shrine. She said she's going to head to Irithyll, which is convenient because I'm also going that way. We meet up with her again in the catacombs where she's been separated from her companion Horace. I think he might have got lost in the woods before this, sometimes you can't see the Horace for the trees. We actually meet her again shortly after. She asked me again if I've seen him, and Yeah, nothing's changed in the last 5 minutes, dude. So, for Wolnir, I thought why not kill him with his own holy sword. This actually proved slightly harder than anticipated. I mean, sure, we used the AoE weapon art to destroy one of the bands early, so that was cool. But for whatever reason, the last wristband just would not go despite lots of hits. Okay, maybe they were Wolnir misses, it was hard to tell honestly. But after enough patience and a bit of luck, the High Lord is defeated and we can now— hey, what the hell, why is he still alive? After smashing that luck stat, we head into Irithyll, smash the dog, smash the knight, and then smash one more bit of dialogue with Anri. Are you still going on about Horus? Well, the only solution is for me to get you forcibly kidnapped, kill you, and then marry you. Wait, what? After throwing some bones into this hole to lure these dogs in, I upgrade the Exile Greatsword up to +9. It's the strongest weapon I've got at the moment, so I'm using it for Pontiff. My plan once again is parrying with the Hornet Ring and using this leather shield this time because we can't barehand parry thanks to weapon arts in this game. I buff further using charcoal pine resin and land the opening parry taking off about a third of his health. A follow-up with a heavy charge instantly after starts his transition to phase 2. I land another charged heavy after he grows wings and another as he summons the clone. I then somehow land a parry and crit, which, followed up with a charged heavy, puts an end to this fight. We finish this one in X style. Onwards to Anor Londo. This is important because we can now finish Amri's questline. We speak to our mammy in Firelink Shrine, Urea Ripley, who tells us to go and find Amri in the Dark Moon Chamber. This pilgrim tells us to go ahead and penetrate our bride with our sword. I don't really feel good about doing this, but I'm too weak and give in to the peer pressure. This is definitely the strangest marriage ceremony I've ever seen. But good news, we now get the Dark Sigils, I guess? The main reason I did this is because quitting out lets us get Amri's straight sword, a weapon that actually scales with luck. I know there's another way to go about this without killing Anri, but I never get this ending, so I felt I might as well do it here. We now grab the Wolf Knight's greatsword for later using the Abyss Watcher's soul, and now it's time for the Man of Devour, Aldrich. We're using the Astora straight sword as supposedly he can be frosted. When you don't get killed in this alcove, that is. As usual, it didn't really help all that much. I only procced Frost once the whole fight near the end, so yeah, not great. I got less lucky with the arrow spam this time. He decided to use it quite a lot in phase 2, and at one point there was a pretty stinky hitbox from this swipe attack. But after a few more minutes, I let out my stored up anger on this blob idiot, and another Lord of Cinder bites the dust. I just keep getting luckier. See, even Dark Souls 2 is doing the lucky dance for me. Will I ever get tired of luring animals into death pits? No, I won't. While I take a quick nap, we can now get to the part of the video that I know you've all been waiting for. Once again, I gave the controller to my wife Babs. She's going to demonstrate her incredible gaming skill, this time by killing a New Game Plus boss with an unupgraded broken straight sword. I hope you're ready for this. Well, that was pretty incredible. Make sure to write in the comments that Babs is the greatest Dark Souls 3 player of all time. Anyway, thanks to Babs' efforts, we can now buy all the types of Titanite we need again. With some scales bought, we get the frayed blade up to +4. This is Half-Light's weapon, and I've never actually used it before. Given that the Nameless King is weak to dark, and how much damage this weapon art normally does to me when Half-Light uses it, I had pretty high hopes. But sadly, those numbers did nothing to soothe my frayed nerves. Why is that so weak? I mean, I know it's New Game++, but 2 R1s does way more than either attack from the weapon art and doesn't use FP. There's got to be a middle ground between the overpowered weapon arts of Elden Ring and this. Anyway, rant over. On the positive for this weapon, the R1 is quite fast, meaning that in some openings we can get multiple hits or a charged heavy in. 3 R1s is definitely the best damage-wise. Nameless King can actually be bled, but he has such a high resistance that it's pretty hard to actually proc it. I know this fight pretty well now, so I wasn't afraid of dying, and after only taking 1 hit the whole fight, Nameless King is done for. Luck is really looking good now. So, 1 Lord of Cinder remains. What do you think I'm gonna use? That's right, it's time to kill Storm the Giant using the Yorm Ruler. Okay, so I could have done another round of the hand-hitting strat, but I figured it's probably the only run where I'll get to use the actual intended gimmick weapon, so I might as well give it a chance to shine. Even in New Game++, it absolutely decimates his health, and it only takes a few blasts to make this giant conform to our will. Now here's a surprise. I actually didn't kill Dancer early for once, so being warped to this room does activate the boss fight this time. Although I was still bouncing with excitement from the previous encounter, I knew that basing my next decision off this was a bad call, so I headed back to check my weapon stock. After some deliberation, I opted for the Drake Blood Greatsword. This weapon is unique in that it deals physical, magic, and lightning damage all at the same time. Will this be a good choice for Dancer? Or was this a mistake? Let's find out. So one thing I'll say for this run is that, even though there's been deaths aplenty, it has really helped me learn a lot of these bosses' movesets. I actually blasted through Dancer's first phase, landing a lot of charged heavies without taking any hits, which was surprising. Sadly, this didn't continue in phase 2 thanks to some furniture obscuring my view. Lucky I didn't die there, to be honest. The next bit was kinda messy. I was really surprised I didn't choke given how many hits I ended up taking. Lloyd's shield ring really putting in the work. Towards the end, I just thought, screw it, and went for 2 charged heavies, which somehow I did not get punished for, and this fight is thankfully over. Drake blood, sweat and tears went into that one, I tell ya. So let's do some cleanup now. For the old Demon King, I used the Despicable Me Curve Sword this time. Basically just a longer, higher damage version of the dagger we used last time. I really wasn't sure about these weapons, but I kinda grew to like them over the course of this run. With the damage and the poison, this lasts only about 90 seconds. I know I could have used one of the Black Knight weapons as it does more damage to demons, but it honestly would have felt like a waste on this guy. Anyway, he is defeated. With his souls, we buy up a bunch more Titanite scales and upgrade his hammer, the ultimate insult. I was initially going to use the hammer to smash up this Irithyll Knight, but then I realized luring him to be burnt to death by the dragon was much funnier. Oh hey, he actually drops a weapon. I don't know if I've ever killed him before. Anyway, I wanted to use the Old King's hammer for Dragon Slayer armor. With the armor weak to strike attacks and fire, this seemed like the best choice. Damage was really solid, and I've learned my lesson about wearing armor myself when I'm forced to mid-roll anyway. This run has really hammered that home to me. He did also play really nice for me by doing the falling bolt attack a few times, but guess what? He survived with a tiny slither of health. This is like the 4th time this has happened in this run. I was going to try finish him with the weapon art lava slam, but I chickened out at the last minute and hit him normally. I didn't fancy old choking somehow after all that. Well, what say we test out the Irithyll rapier we got from that night? With some twinkling tights, we upgrade to +4 and decide to go skewer some cuttlefish. He is apparently also weak to frost as well, but given that Aldrich was also apparently weak to frost, Hey, we procced it already! Sweet! This weapon actually worked great, until I tried to use the weapon art near the end. Probably good for PvP or something, but terrible for Osiris given how much it missed. But 4 hits proccing frost was very useful and helped to fill this dragon full of holes and help us to pick up the W shortly after. Oh, Champion Gundyr? Well, I figured out the most insulting weapon to use against him. That's right, the Firelink Greatsword. Legend of Zelda is his favourite franchise, you see, so he'd be really upset if Link got let go. So, guess what? The weapon art was actually good. It did good damage, has nice range, and also buffs the sword with fire for a bit, letting us get more damage in. That's what I'm talking about. Landed up close, and you get even more damage. There were still some close calls here. It's easy to get smashed if you take your eye off the ball with him even for a moment. This final sequence of dodging and attacking was something I'm pretty proud of though. A champion performance, one might say. Remember how the claws did great against the princes before? Well, we've also got the mannequin claws, so I'm going to test them out. I gotta say, the L1 combo did a great job of absolutely dismantling the Crystal Sage in the archives, managing to take them out before they disappeared. Hopefully that sends a message to all the other enemies in here. On the way up to the top, I had a bit of a weird interaction here. First time I climbed up, I gargled and fell to my death, but next time it was in fact the gargoyle who gargled and fell off. Weirdly, there was no death sound and I didn't get any souls, they just kinda disappeared. Huh. You know what? Things have gone pretty smoothly for a while here. I've managed to finally kick my habit of choking at the last. Well, that's manic armor, I guess. Well, that aside, this actually went even better than last time. If you take one thing away from this video, give claws a try in Dark Souls 3. So much time after the attack to dodge. In Phase 2, I actually got more attacks in on Lothric this time. So much so, in fact, that after I killed Lorien for only the first time in Phase 2, I unleashed an all-out assault on Lothric, and thanks to a bleed proc right near the end, I killed him before he was able to revive his mannequin, and thus the final Lord of Cinder for this cycle is defeated. The Art of Claw prevails once again. Now, because we have Lorien's Greatsword and Lothric's Holy Sword, we can trade them in for the Twin Prince Greatsword, which I've no doubt will be an absolutely epic weapon. But now is not the time for that. It's time for the DLC, and also time to bust out the Executioner's Greatsword. This sword is quite unique because it actually does strike damage, the only greatsword that does that, I believe. We once again head down to the depths of the painting. Obviously, I got down first try, and there were no deaths that I didn't record footage of. Hopefully, our flat sword will work well against the champion's Gravetender. The wolves definitely went down a bit easier this time. The Gravetender himself was not going as smooth thanks to that stance attack he kept doing. Pretty BS that he just poises through my charge. But then I got lucky and broke his guard, letting me land a critical followed by me mashing R1 furiously and it somehow killing him. I didn't say it would be executed skillfully, just that it would get done. From the torch video, someone told me that apparently if you hit the wolf with a charged heavy while it's spewing frost, it always staggers, and it appears that is accurate. The critical was enough to leave them both in the tender embrace of death. You know what we need right now? Luck. Much more luck. That's right, it's finally time for Amri's Straightsword, which I believe has an A scaling in luck from what the wikis say. It's probably false, but hey. It also has a unique property that means we regain health at around 2 HP per second. Not enormous, but hey, it's something. After watching Master Wilhelm become Master Wilfelm once again, we get up to the chapel and prepare for the final assault on Frida. I actually opted to upgrade the Straightsword to max here, as I realized I had enough slabs to do that with every weapon for the last few bosses. You know, for a Straightsword, the damage is pretty good. I mean, getting that damage requires leveling up luck load, so it's probably not a great trade-off, but anyway. By this point, I had gotten really good at reading Sister Frida's movements. In Phase 1, I realized I could also backstab her after the leaping frost jump if I got my positioning right. In Phase 2, I also got the backstab just as she was doing the healing animation, basically Frida damage there. For Black Flame Frida, she has the same frost jump, which again you can backstab if you get your positioning right. Kinda crazy that I once used to consider this the hardest boss fight in the Souls trilogy, but now I can get through it on New Game Plus with unupgraded health and only using 4 Estus. I've come and really far since then, and honestly, I'm kinda proud of myself. Alrighty, so I upgrade all of my remaining weapons to maximum with all the slabs I've got, before securing myself another point of luck and heading into the Dreg Heap, Black Knight Great Axe in tow. It's been a while since we did Big Unga Bunga. Ooh, we one-shot the Angel. So I alluded to this earlier, but there's a specific reason I'm using this weapon for this next bit. So, the Twin Demons and the Demon Prince both take an extra 20% damage from Black Knight weapons. The damage really is no joke. Over 800 damage to the demons with a single R1, and nearly 400 to the Prince. But there's one problem. Stamina. 2 R1s totally drains my stamina bar. Even just using one attack locks me in place, so I need to really ensure I'm in a position to dodge, because one-shots are really on the table here. Given that it's once again a guaranteed mid-roll sesh, I decided to give myself some slightly better armor before descending for the battle once again. One big problem with this weapon and others of this size that I don't think I've mentioned thus far is the rolling attack. It does this very weird short-range attack where you jam the weapon into the ground, which basically always misses unless you're literally touching the boss. I would have probably done this way quicker had this been a nice horizontal swing. I mean, the first phase isn't too bad. We break the demon's poise with just a few hits, and then the critical attack takes off half their health. Demon Prince is the real worry. I can't afford to be vulnerable at any point or this fight will end quickly. I learned that staying on the right side of him is slightly safer as you can avoid the knuckle drag attack. I'd hoped that a poise break and a critical would do a bit more damage, but it's still nice. I basically ended up doing this phase hitless because if I hadn't, I'd probably be dead. With one final critical attack, we let the demon reunite with his brethren in the blackness of death. We're inching ever closer to the end. With that huge chunk of souls in hand, we can allocate some more points into our chosen stat. These creatures impart us with their knowledge as we descend before we make one final mad dash down the Ring City streets. Now here, it's time for the Wolf Knight's Greatsword to shine. You see, it does 20% additional damage to Abyss-type monsters, and our boy Midir does indeed fall into that category. It's kinda hard to get a good idea of how decent the damage is from this chaotic bridge encounter, but the real fight will be a much better test. But there's one thing we simply must do before this. There we go. Derptorius is ready to go. So let's check the damage. Almost 600 from a single R1 swing, which is pretty good. A running R2 clears 700, and a charged R2 hits for around 1100, which is really good. But of course, we also have a weapon art allowing us to execute the Artorius Somersault for another clean 1100 plus damage. Given that it was faster and had more damage than the charged heavy, this was comfortably one of my favourite weapon arts of the whole run. The finish to this fight was pretty wild. Midir executed the multi-smack combo, which I punished with a somersault, but then I realised I was up against a wall. Before I could get myself to a better position, he started the double bite followed by the fire breath, which I managed to dodge, get round to the side of his head, and land a running R1, opening him up for the critical. As he recovered, it took just 2 further R1s to the head to end the fight completely. I didn't even intend it to be, but this fight was actually completed hitless as well. Needless to say, the Wolf Knight Greatsword had me howling with joy. But of course, one thing that was devoid of joy was Half-Light, which unfortunately was next in this final gauntlet. Right, let's do this. What? You didn't think I grabbed that staff earlier for no reason, did you? Fuck Half-Light. End of story. 2 bosses remain. With 44 luck now on our side, I transported myself to the empty wasteland at the end of time and prepared for what would end up being quite a tricky fight. For this one, I was going to use the Twin Prince's Greatsword. With its 2 very cool weapon arts, this should be an epic encounter for sure. Well, actually no. I'm sure there'll be a bunch of comments disagreeing and saying it's good for PvP or whatever, but I was pretty underwhelmed by this weapon. It does get some scaling with Int and Faith, so perhaps if I'd leveled those up it would be better, but not great damage all around with my current build. The best part was the Fire Sword weapon art, but you have to be really close and it has quite a wind up, so it didn't seem worth it. Oh, also I really struggled with Phase 2 this time round for some reason. One scuffed dodge again means death because his attacks hit twice. In principle, this should be easy as I've done him so many times before, but the low damage made this fight really drag out. The winning attempt took 17 minutes total. I was probably being overly cautious, to be honest with you. This run took me 3 weeks to do, and at this point I was ready for it to be done. I actually found Phase 2 harder than Phase 3 because Phase 3 I found has much clearer windows where I know he won't be able to respond with a follow-up. With enough patience as well as constant fear of choking again, I finally landed the last couple of strikes to execute my twin condition. Well, just one weapon left to use, but first, one final dose of luck. We place all the cinders of the lords for the last time and pray at the fire for the run's completion. So the Black Knight Greatsword is our last weapon. I felt like it was kind of fitting to smack Gwyn's soul with a sword wielded by his own knights. Honestly, seeing this damage on Soul of Cinder following the Gale fight nearly brought a tear to my eye. He also kindly decided to stay in sorcerer form until he was 1 hit from death before not so kindly switching to spear form and smacking me up loads. I got those hits eventually and we moved to the Soul of Gwynder phase. I baited the jump attack as that was the main window I felt comfortable to get an attack in on. It didn't take too many hits, but I did actually nearly die at the end as he fired off his lightning as I delivered the final blow. I thought I was safe, but it struck me right after and came within a millimeter of killing me. Thankfully, we survive, and at last, we can wish good night to this run. This was an absolute marathon, one of the longest and toughest runs I think I've ever completed. I think the most I've died on one of these multi-cycle challenges as well. In any case, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching up to this point. I'm gonna go rest now. Until next time, I've been JK Leeds. See ya, and have a good one.
like a moth drawn to a flame. Your wings will burn in anguish.
First up, some old ladies told me I was going to die over and over. And they were right. We name our character One Derp and made this beautiful creature. We normally choose Deprived, but this time we choose Swordsman as DS2 has a lot of strength weapons with higher dex requirements than the other games. Unfortunately, neither of his starting weapons are good for this run though. Instead, we grab the Morning Star from Medulla and head to Forest of Fallen Giants. Ooh, a throwing knife! Here, this turtle guy helps me get the shortcut and we get a lucky wing spear drop for later. It's first boss time. We'll be using the Morning Star for the last giant. It deals bleed, which helps to speed this up even though it's just a flat 200 damage. I beat him without taking a hit, a star performance that left the last giant stands in mourning. With the souls we gained, we buy the hand axe and club from Melentia to improve our arsenal. We then get our first level up, bringing us to 16 strength. We then buy Lenegrass' key from Melentia and get her to move to Medulla for infinite life gems. After helping Lazy Grass get back into his shop, we hide to Head's Towers of Flame. To make that one guy in the comments who gets really angry when I make Dragon Rider fall off the edge, I decided to fight him normally on this run. I probably should have raised all the platforms, but oh well. The club is a good enough weapon as he's weak to strike damage, but his attacks are so easy to dodge anyway, I probably could have just used my bare fists. I love the sound it makes when hitting him. Bonk. We deny him entry from our club and finish off the fight shortly after. We increase our weapon stock by buying the mace and battle axe from Lenegrast. After this, we level up strength again. We could buy Titanite shards, but Lenegrast only sells 10, so maybe it's better to save them for later. Let's challenge the Pursuer instead. He's also weak to strike damage, so let's get the mace on the go. Our damage was solid, and I feel good knowing a certain contingent of my audience is going to be really excited for me using this weapon again. I dodged most of his attacks, but got greedy at the end and got caught by the sword stab. Thankfully, I killed him in the next hit. I promise I'll be more careful in future. Just beyond him, we grab the Dranglaic sword for later. We used some of his souls to buy effigies from Melentia and get the Silver Serpent Ring +1. More souls will never not be useful. We then level up, reaching 28 strength already after just 3 bosses. With Pursuer down, we fly to the Lost Bastille where we get the Dull Ember. We do a little Donkey Kong to blow up this wall and then give the Duff Ember to McDull. As well as using him for upgrades, we can light the torch near him to get him to move so we can get the Craftsman's Hammer and some Twinkling Titanite. We then go back to Hades and take the path beyond Dragon Rider, where I thankfully remembered to put on the Silver Serpent Ring and Ring of Blades. In No Man's Wharf, we do all the usual things like running through, pulling the lever, and unlocking the shortcut. We also grab the Royal Soldier's Ring and the Bandit Axe. Boss time once again. We use the Hand Axe for Flexile Sentry. This weapon is fine, I guess. Not the most exciting weapon, let's be real, but it actually did decent damage. We even managed to get a stagger at one point so it was able to handle the sentry without too much issue. We now unlock the other route to the Lost Bastille via a nice boat ride, but we headed back to finish off Hades first. I actually upgraded the Battle Axe to +3, but it was more for dealing with the enemies before the boss than the boss itself. This helped a lot to clear the area, and after we smacked Ian the Guard Dragon in the face, we were ready. We easily hacked down the old Dragon Slayer in a fight that was so forgettable that I actually forgot to record it, so you'll just have to imagine it. We level up to 39 strength anyway. I decided to use the S-Stock for a bit, upgrading it to +3. After popping old Dragon Slayer's soul, we pay Lycia to open Huntsman's Copse, where we can get the Bandit's Knife. If you somehow never used them before, here's a newsflash. Thrusting swords are very powerful in this game. S-Stock in hand, we showed Rowena no mercy. Given how strong a weapon it was, I realized I didn't want to waste one of the only thrust weapons I get in this cycle on the Skeleton Lords, so I used the Bandit Axe instead for them. Even unupgraded, it still did great damage taking out the Lords in just 3 or 4 swings. Once the Lords became hordes, we smashed through them with our mighty horizontal swings capable of hitting multiple enemies at once. If these skeletons had their way, this axe wouldn't be allowed. They would have banned it. Beyond them in Harvest Valley, we skip rapidly through Cloanne's dialogue to get her back to Medulla and then speak to Gavlan. There's really not much else of interest here, so we speed through to Covetous Demon. We use the Bandit Knife, bleed helps a bit, but I mean, it's Covetous Demon, come on. His immobility in this fight left him questioning his knife style choices as he died quickly in front of me. We level strength again, bringing it to 43, before returning to Earthen Peak to light the windmill on fire and speaking to Bo Raicho, who seems to have quite a full bladder. He sells the reinforced club, and we grab the Pharos Lockstone and Twinkling Titanite on the ledge beneath him. On to Mytha. Here, I decided to use the S-Stock as she's weak to pierce damage. As expected, the damage is really good here, tearing through her health bar. I wish I could S-Stock up on more of these types of weapons, but sadly only very few are strength scaling. Another boss defeated. We then head to Iron Keep, where I definitely don't die loads to Sharon and Dennis. That felt good. Bye, Dennis. A little way in, we speak to Madurold and buy the Jester's hat and some other stuff to prompt him to give us the Gold Serpent Ring +1. All useful because there will be some farming later. We return to Majula and speak to Gilligan to set up some ladders for later, as we had some souls to spare at this point. Okay, so full disclosure that the routing's a little bit all over the place in this run, but hey, it's my run, I'll do it in any order I please. Anyway, I return to Lost Bastille to finish some business here. I thought to try the Ruined Sentinels with the Reinforced Club as they're weak to strike, and holy Izalith, what is that damage? That's insane! I took off half of the second one's health before the third joined me up here. It was still a little scary because obviously my health is low and they can kill me quickly, but I got them on the first try thankfully, reinforcing my confidence that I could succeed in this run. I pushed forward, killing a pursuer for Twinkling Titanite on the way, and freed Strayed from his stone status. From him, we trade some boss souls for the Pursuer Ultra Greatsword and Giant Stone Axe. We leveled to 49 strength. For the Pursuer's Ultra Greatsword, we actually need 2 more decks to wield it, so we borrowed Kael's helmet. To keep our route as confusing as possible, I decided to head to the Shaded Woods, free Rosabeth, and somehow avoid dying to this gank. Then the Dragonslayer Crescent Axe we acquire, before lighting the Shaded Ruins bonfire, then kill this guy for the Fang Key Prior, to freeing Ornifex, whom we require. Next we kill this body missing a head, tried to go see Vengal, but wound up dead. Okay, enough of that. We get to head of Vengal, buy the Boruto Greatsword, the Red Rust Sword, and the Red Rust Scimitar. The latter two only become available after killing his body, hence why we did that first. Okay, so Najka. We used the Pursuer Ultra Greatsword because why the hell not? Damage was pretty decent and the fight went okay, once I got past the one-shot contest PTSD of course. She chased us a lot so I didn't need to pursue her much except when she jumped back to cast spells. The fight did drag a little thanks to her burrowing underground a bunch, but otherwise no issues. With some more souls in hand, we upgraded our weapons with Lenegrast, and then he gave me the blacksmith hammer as a thank you for helping him pay off Cloanne's student loans. I went back to Iron Keep now and made the wise decision to try and run through. It didn't go so well. Like, really not well. But hey, at least we finally got the Zweihander. After much aggro, we get through to the Smelter Demon, who I resolved to use the Craftsman's Hammer, given he's weak to strike. It did good damage even at +1. The persistent fire AoE was definitely an issue with low health, and most of his attacks would really hurt. I'd say this was the toughest fight so far, but this weapon was almost perfectly crafted to handle it, and we managed to get through. We are now at a massive 61 strength. Feeling cockier than ever, I keep pushing through the area after Smelter Demon until we get to Old Iron King. For him, I used the Giant Stone Axe because honestly, I don't really like this weapon, and I didn't want to waste a good one on this guy. Damage was okay enough, and the boss was one of the few who was slow enough for this weapon to work on. I tried to sing this boss a song using the axe, but it turned out he was stone deaf. But anyway, that's our first Great Soul defeated. I felt like I wanted more souls, so I decided to kill Maudlin the Armourer for the Seldora armor to increase our soul gain even further. Let's clear up a few more loose ends. For the Belfry Gargs, we used the Dragonslayer Crescent Axe. It took a few hits to kill them even with the axe's lightning damage, which they're weak to, so sadly I couldn't kill the first two before more spawned. There was lots of running away and popping life gems, but I feel like that's kind of a standard Belfry Gargoyle fight anyway. After enough running and swinging, we crescent this boss to the afterlife. With their soul, we can get the Gargoyle's Bident. But it's now time for the first bit of farming of the run. I joined the Covenant of Champions to prevent enemies despawning. I bought some poison throwing knives from Gavlan, which actually will make this a bit easier. The farming spot is here in Doors of Pharos. I need weapons from the Mastodon Knight and the Gurm Warrior. But Gavlan also has the Gurm Great Axe, which he gives you when you buy enough stuff from him. After several runs, we got the Mastodon Halberd from the Mastodon Knight, and get the Gurm Great Hammer from the Gurm Warrior. With that done, we head to Brightstone Cove. We use the Gurm Great Axe to take out the Congregation boss up ahead. It almost felt like a waste to use this beastly axe for this weak as hell boss, but it was pretty funny to unintentionally complete the one-shot again with an unupgraded weapon. It's a powerful weapon, those are the facts. Deeper in the cove, we bonk Guthrie and say hi to Ornifex. So the next Great Soul boss is here, and it's Freya. We'll use the large club and of course keep our torch up to scare off those spiders. Freya is weak to strike, and the one-handed R1 is a vertical hit which is ideal for smashing her head in. It's kinda crazy how much easier this fight is when you have the torch up. Literally becomes a joke of a boss. The laser attack is super easy to bait and gives you a huge window to run around and hit the other head. Soon after, Freya joins the club of defeated bosses. Second Great Soul done. Well, let's get another one done. Onto the Lost Sinner. On the way, we kill this knight for the hide spear for later. Unfortunately, I got to the Sinner's boss room and realized I didn't have a flame butterfly, so it's a fight in the dark for me. I used the Red Rust Scimitar for the Lost Sinner. Despite only being +1, the damage was great and the attack speed was fast. The short lock on range and lack of ADP definitely hurt here, and there was a couple of close calls as a result, which is another way of saying I have a skill issue. Maybe I'm just a bit rusty at this game. Luckily though, I read the Sinner's moves, and shortly after our third Great Soul is defeated. We get ourselves up to a massive 80 strength, and to be honest, I don't think I need to level it anymore. Right, let's get some more optional bosses done. We make our way to the Executioner's Chariot, and I'll never get tired of watching these guys fall off the bridge. But as much as I enjoyed that, I enjoyed stunlocking this guy even more. Using the Dragon Tooth, this surprisingly turned out to be one of the harder chariot fights in a while. I mean, killing the skeletons and necromancers was fine. The chariot though, did over half my health with each attack. We did big damage too with Dragon Tooth, but there were points where I was legit worried I might die here. Thankfully, after fighting Dragon Tooth and Nail, I managed to kill it before it killed me. I now backtrack to Earthen Peak to get the work hook. Why did I get this, you might ask? Well, I didn't want to waste a good weapon on the Royal Rat Vanguard, but this turned out to be a lot worse than I imagined. The R1s of the work hook simply cannot hit these guys, only the R2 can, and it takes 3 of them to kill 1 rat. Our range is terrible, and once the real one finally appeared, I kept getting poisoned constantly. I guess doing any boss with base health is gonna suck a little. I should stop underestimating these fights. I luckily saved myself the shame of dying to this boss and managed to somehow win out in the end. Safe to say, this weapon did not put in work. Well, now onto this wonderful place. We get the Bandit Great Axe and the Hide Lance. Can you tell I don't know how to pronounce hide? Is it hide? Is it hade? I don't know. And finally, the Great Club. We now enter the Black Gulch. I took this moment to quickly go and get the Chariot Lance from Strayed, before returning to smash up Gully and killed the giants below, completing our chores in this area. Now, onto the final Great Soul, the Rotten. As we know from the one-shot run, he's weak to thrust and lightning, so the Hide Lance was perfect. It did huge damage, especially after I remembered the old Leo ring and switched to it mid-fight. The Rotten has huge counter windows which are easy to exploit for big damage. There was no place for this big blobby boy to hide, as we took him in under 2 minutes. With all the Great Souls down, Audia brings the boom. Lastly, before leaving the Gulch, I had a nice little chat with Dumbledark. But of course now, it's time for Dranglake Castle. On the way there, I got the Royal Greatsword from killing these guys by a good stroke of luck. Using the Mastodon Halberd, I brute forced my way into the castle. I get the Mastodon Greatsword from a chest inside and get the Butcher Knife from Ornifex. I then speak to Grandal for the last time to get all that unlocked for later before I get to the next bonfire and kill the Usurper. It wasn't even close. For the Twin Dragon Riders, I opted for the Great Club for the strike damage. The best strat I found was to get the red one to destroy the pillar the second one stands on. Then, with the weaker one on the ground, we kill it in just 2 R2s. One-on-one, the other is easy to beat given his telegraphed and easy to avoid moveset. A sometimes annoying encounter I was grateful to have finished. Further beyond, we smash the mannequins to open the way and get the key to the King's Passage. Looking Glass Knight is weak to strike, as it seems a lot of enemies are, so we use the Blacksmith's Hammer. The damage was good, but damn does he hit hard. The only downside of our weapon is its short range, so we need to be right up in his grill to hit him. I couldn't take him out before he summoned unfortunately, but at least the summon died in 3 hits. I got hit by some lightning near the end, but took a risk and went in for the kill, hammering home the point that strike weapons are pretty good. Chancellor Welliger now sells Bound Hand Axe and the Homunculus Mace, so we snap these up before Shrine of Amana. I've said it before, but the Mastodon Halberd is epic. It can take out 2 of these archdrakes at once with spin to win. We got through the shrine pretty easily thanks to it. I mean, not this bit, but hey, at least we got the Red Iron Twin Blade. After we finally got through, my character's appearance here can probably tell you how many times I died trying, we used the Mastodon Greatsword for Demon of Song. The sword has decent damage and an okay moveset, it's nothing too exciting, but was fine to kill this boss. I mean, just the wind blowing in the wrong direction could probably take out this frog. A few more swings and the fight is master done. We actually ran out of effigies, but we can get to this altar as long as we can take out this pyromancer. What the hell? Anyway, human again. We now head to Undead Ditch and smash definitely not Lycia again. With the shortcut unlocked, it's time for Velstad. We use the Gurm Great Hammer, an anvil on a stick. Good damage, but lack of iframes here really hurts. We've taken a turn into One-Shot City. I tried using poison resin, but we never actually procced poison, so that was kind of a waste of time. I managed to thankfully dodge the overhead smash and not get one-shot. I did get hit near the end, but I just went for the kill, and after several deaths, this Anvillain dies at last. With his death, we can get the King's Ring and head to Audia's Keep. We piss off this hippo to smash the wall, which allows us to get the malformed shell weapon. Time for Ian the Guard Dragon, a notoriously easy boss. I mean, who would die to this guy? I'll be honest, the Bandit Great Axe is not great. Horrendous range, but damage is decent at least. Ian takes more damage to his head, so hitting that works best on the rare opportunities I can. The lingering hitbox of his fire is pretty annoying, but luckily I avoided the shame of dying to Ian twice and stole victory with the Bandit Great Axe. We get the ever-useful Aged Feather from the Emerald Herald before Tiny Audia talks his usual rubbish. Homunculus Mace is another epic weapon, and it does a great job smashing these knights easily. I did however decide to wear some better armor now. We then easily clubbed Gaia the Dragon Champion to death. Our good friend Ancient Dragon gave me the Ashen Mist Heart, and then killed me in the most BS way possible. Like, what was that? Why was there a shockwave there before he lifted his foot up? Right, time to put my foot down. I used the Bound Hand Axe for bleed to speed this along, but as always, this was bound to be a boring fight. Time now to delve into the Giant's memories. We grab the Giant Warrior Club from the memory of Vamar, as well as the other Giant Souls. Of course, the last Giant Soul is behind the Giant Lord boss. We use the Royal Greatsword, which is another bleed weapon. He isn't too tanky in the health department, but bleed still helps to quicken his defeat. I was a royal pain in his ankles, that's for sure. While Giant Lord may not have been that tanky, Vendrick definitely is, so this calls for another bleed weapon, the Chariot Lance. Awesome counter damage actually with the bleed helped to melt down that health. It again feels like a bit of a waste to use a good weapon on a boss like him, but I guess we gotta use it somewhere, right? The king is executed swiftly to tick another boss off our list. Now, you might think things have been going a bit smoothly, but that's about to change. Because let me tell you, Throne Watcher and Defender with low health and ADP? Yeah, this was not fun. I actually decided to use our Mastodon Halberd, a weapon I've been saving because it's so strong. I upgraded it to +9. This was a fight where one mistake could mean death, and it felt like the right place to use one of our best weapons. I mostly stuck with one hit, apart from one time when I used a spin to win to hit both of them. Throne Watcher thankfully has pretty low health, so once they're down, the fight becomes a bit easier. I actually used an R2 spin to finish off the defender. This just shows that when tough fights like these arise, we must adorn our strongest build. This fight ending of course leads straight into Nashandra. Malformed Shell is our weapon of choice here because she's yet another boss weak to strike damage. I got cursed brutally, but thankfully her laser attacks are easy enough to bait, giving a big window to get hits in. There was no shelter for her from our giant swings. Audia arrives, but we bone out. I'ma save him for later. Let's get DLC ready first. We grab the Dragon Talon, go plunge the Fire Lizard. Anyway, we get the Heavy Iron Key. But we won't head to the DLCs just yet. Let's do the Dark Chasms beforehand. We get the place lit up and stunlock the annoying pyromancers, easily the worst enemy in these chasms. Okay, we finally made it to Dark Lurker. Well, that went well. If you couldn't tell already, it's butcher knife time. Is every attack here a one-shot? It gets even worse when you have two of them on you at once. I opted to switch out to the red rust sword. I used gold pine resin and a bright bug to boost damage to max, but honestly, it still felt pretty low. I don't know how, but I managed to dodge loads of attacks in the second phase. I didn't realize till watching it back, but I actually did this boss hitless, which I don't think I've ever done with this fight before. But even with that victory, the dread this run was about to instill in me was only just beginning. DLC time. It's on to Broom Tower first. Here, we can at last grab the dexterity ring, which will be helpful for wielding certain weapons. Now, I've got no idea how I got away with creeping through this room here, but sadly the same can't be said of this room here. Alluring skulls thankfully help to make this a little bit less painful. This next section though, always causes me issues, and I did die a lot here. Even finally getting the gate open ended in my death. But it's okay, I took out my frustration by poking Rachel till she died. We finally got the scepter, put it in the slot, and we can now get the Simpleton's ring for some more ADP. I probably should have rushed to get this ring earlier, honestly. Guess I was the simpleton. I went back to Dragon Shrine to get the third Dragon's Ring also for more health, weight and stamina, and then made my way to the bottom of Broom Tower at last. Fume Knight was up next, and it was the Zweihander's time to shine. Or for me to die. A lot. By far the most painful fight of the run so far. I switched to the Homunculus Mace, which I found a lot better. Except when this happens. Or this. Okay, that one's on me for seeing red there. On the winning attempt, I used Green Blossom and Gold Pine Resin. The first phase isn't too much issue, easy enough to dodge his attacks and land attacks in return. Mace swings reasonably fast even if the range isn't great. For the second phase, many of his attacks one-shot me, so I only punished certain attacks like the big sword beam and the running thrust attacks where I knew I could get away without being punished. Everything else I stayed back from and avoided. I staggered him right at the end and luckily had the damage to finish him off, finally satisfying my homunculust for victory. We get our first crown of the run. If you're wondering about the Fume Ultra Greatsword, well, despite being a classic strength weapon, Dark Souls 2 gave it a dex requirement of 30. So, yeah. Don't worry, we will use it later on, I promise. Anyway, we run to get the tower key and prepare to journey to Sir Alon. As expected, I ran for my life. For Sir Alon, I used the Red Iron Twin Blade, another awesome weapon. He was easier than Fume Knight, I thought. Mostly. Dodging through his attacks was pretty fun, but most importantly, nothing really was a one-shot. The multi-R1 combo of the Red Iron Twin Blade did loads of damage in the rare opportunities I got to pull it off after certain attacks. For other windows, I stuck to a single R1 as sometimes caution is key, but I did push the boat out and use an R2 to finish him off, executing my twin-to-win strategy. There's still one more boss in this DLC, but for now we pivot and go to Eliam Lois. Using the Zweihander, I actually killed all the enemies on the way for once. Even the bigger guys went down easy. We worked our way through, grabbed the Eye of the Priestess, didn't respect Lemon's sippy break, and then I realized I messed up. The Zweihander actually has equal strength and dex scaling, so thus I am not allowed to use it for this cycle. It was only much later that I realized at plus 10 it goes up to B scaling in strength, so it would have been allowed, but oh well. Anyway, Ava, using the Butcher Knife at plus 2. Things were going well, but one problem. The Butcher Knife was losing durability way too fast for my liking. I forgot that all the kitties have some weird aura that burns through your durability. I also had forgot to get the Ring of the Embedded, an amazing ring that boosts your health, equip load and stamina. The boost increases depending on how low these stats are. You do take more damage, but it's like 8% more, so I'd say it's a good trade-off. After getting the Butcher Knife to plus 3 and buying some repair powder, I was ready for Ava again. I used a Bright Bug and Charcoal Pine Resin. Damage was decent, but Ava can still destroy us easily if we're not careful. Dodging under the claw swipes was the perfect window for either healing or attacking, as well as getting behind her when she does the projectile attack on the rare occasions I was close enough to capitalize. The Butcher Knife attacks quick and restores health, which is nice. I used repair powder partway through to keep us topped up, and after a few more swings, we bring this fight to a close. Butcher? I hardly even know her. With Ava down, we can get rid of the snowstorm, allowing us to get the Vessel Shield to boost more stats. With the snowstorm gone, there was only one logical thing to do next. Head to the Sunken Crown DLC. Totally makes sense. Here, we get the Sanctum Mace, take out these guards, get the Dragonstone, and cause Jester Thomas's AI to break somehow. He just decided to stop attacking me for some reason. Jester? I hardly even know her. Well, guess what Alana is weak to? If you said strike, you would be absolutely correct. I went to take on Alana with the Giant Warrior Club. I expected a tough fight as usual, but look how much damage the opening 3 hits did. That's like 20% of her health. Crazy damage. It was the easiest Alana fight in a long time. We also one-shot the skeletons with the club, and thankfully she never summoned Velstad. It was nice for a normally really annoying fight to go down so quick. This was a giant boon for the run. With Alana down, we of course next face the Blue Smelter Demon. Weak to strike and poison, Sanctum Mace seems like the ticket. This weapon poisons enemies, but it also poisons you, which isn't great. On my second attempt, I actually killed Smelter Demon, but then died from the poison a second after, and guess what? It didn't count. The Sanctum Mace is quite unique as well in that it has spear-like attacks, but it does strike damage. The running attack hits multiple times, which is great for proccing poison, but poison moss is absolutely crucial for using this weapon to reduce the build-up on yourself. Being poisoned here when he also has his flames chipping away at your health is, it goes without saying that's bad. It's really bad. I had to focus more than ever on not being greedy, because not only would it mean he might hit me, but it also could mean I get poisoned. Despite all that, I did in fact nearly die right near the end due to being greedy, but thankfully barely dodged his follow-up, landed the finishing blow, and then ate some healing farm maceuticals to prevent my own death. Let's take a brief break from the bosses to get yet more weapons. First, we go to the Doors of Pharos for the Gurm Axe. Then to Shrine of Amana to get Soul of the King, which we trade to get the King's Ultra Greatsword. We also traded Fume Knight's Soul for the Fume Sword. Well, let's try out the Gurm Axe on Sin the Slumbering Dragon. This might initially seem scary because of his AoE fire breath and the short range of the axe, but with good positioning, you can hit his head after many of his attacks. The best times are either when he lands or after the head swipe charge. Damage was pretty solid from the axe as well. Obviously there's no way to mitigate the time where he just spams flying attacks over and over, but it is what it is. Soon after, we give this worm the axe with our Gurm Axe. This victory gives us the Sunken Crown, but of course this DLC isn't done yet. There's one boss remaining, and I don't know about you, but I've got a hankering for some gankering. We used the King's Ultra Greatsword for this one. It's a pretty tedious fight as always, but at least the damage was good. I also used gold pine resin for more damage, working especially well in the water parts of the arena. After crushing his buddy, the Havel Simp just kinda gave up at the end. It seems he reached his Bray King point. Sarah was the last one standing, but not for long unfortunately for him. Oh well, que sera sera as they say. So just the Ivory King DLC left. Back in Elium Lois, we crush Hexa Nikolai, free an Elium Lois Knight, grab the Garrison Ward Key, free another Knight, and finally free the final Knight. Then onto Ivory King. This was surprisingly easy compared to many of the other DLC fights this run. The Boruto Greatsword took out the Knights with little issue, although there were still some close calls due to just my low health, but that's par for the course here. Our Knight Companion actually had some decent health left himself by the time the King got in. I popped a Brightbug as we waited and buffed the Boruto Greatsword with gold pine resin. We took off big chunks of health with every swing. I feel like I say this sentence almost every video, but I did nearly die right near the end. But as chance would have it, our knight friend was actually still alive, and he sacrificed himself to distract the king long enough for me to heal. I was determined to ensure my comrade's sacrifice was not in vain, so I tried to end it soon after, only for the king to dodge my attack and hit me with his grab. I very much thought that I was dead here, but managed to barely survive and land a running swing to end the fight here on my first try. With that, the third crown is acquired. So lastly, of course, the Frigid Outskirts. I made use of the NPC summons to distract the reindeer so I could run through. I normally would not ever summon, but I feel like this is the only place where it's fine to do, otherwise just getting to the end of this area is pretty painful. So, the last DLC boss, Lud and Zalin. For them, I used the Gargoyle's Bident. With Brightbug, Old Leo Ring and Charcoal Pine Resin, damage was really good, especially during the counter windows. I had some lucky RNG when Zalin got involved, which meant I killed Lud quickly. I had to equip and use repair powder while in the fight because I just again forgot about their durability reduction aura, but thankfully I came out unscathed. I did such good damage that I managed to take out Zalin before it finished its buff animation, something I'm not sure I've ever done. This weapon really made some lodge by dents in their health bars. With that, all the DLCs are complete for this cycle. We get the crowns restored to their full power, and then I went off to finish the only other base game boss remaining apart from Audia, the Royal Rat Authority. For this, I used the Bone Scythe. Now, I don't know if I just got lucky, but I actually managed to kill all the rats very quickly without getting toxicked for once. After that, charcoal pine resin helped to bring the big guy down very quickly with some precise swings. Finally, for Audia, I used a broken straight sword. Does he deserve anything better? No, he does not. It was a boring fight with a weak as hell weapon, but eventually we leave this tree broken and beaten, finishing off the cycle at last. I left the throne room, however, because our work is not done. After 18 hours of unskippable credits, I decided to grab a bunch of weapons from all around to help speed up the next cycle. I actually got the Ice Rapier drop after just 4 kills, which was really surprising. The Black Steel Katana took longer, but we got there eventually. Sadly, we were not so lucky with the Umbral Dagger. I even got the Blue Dagger, which I actually wasn't even planning to use, but I guess I should find a place for it now. With that nonsense sorted, we move to the deck cycle. But before we do, remember the number I showed you earlier? What do you think that was? Well, let me tell you. That is the number of words in the script for this video. I guess this is my way of saying that these videos take an incredible amount of work in terms of doing the run, scripting, editing, etc. So if you do enjoy my videos, I hope you'll consider subscribing to help support both the channel and my sanity as I keep making this stuff going forward. Thank you, I appreciate you all. We make it back into the old women's house and return to Majula. I get Lenegrass key from Alentia ASAP and then decided to do Dragon Rider first this time with a +3 dagger. This was laughably easy, just walk around and slash repeatedly. I imagine it must have been very dagger-evating for him. We speak to Lycia just beyond him and actually buy the Ring of Prayer for later. In an effort to keep things fresh, I killed Pursuer during the first encounter, this time with a +3 Shotel. This weapon was decently fast, range wasn't great though. I did have some issues due to some mobs joining the fight at the start, but once they were dealt with, it was fairly smooth sailing to bring this boss down, taking his soul to bring to my classes Show and Tell. Now, let's do our first bit of dex leveling, getting it all the way up to 20. Next up is the last giant, and we use the scimitar for him. I mean, he hasn't changed much apart from more health. I tried the R2, but it doesn't do much more than the R1 at the cost of more time and stamina, so I just mainly spammed Scimitar 1 until he died. We take the route past the Pursuer to Lost Bastille, where we have a blast as per usual. Rune Sentinels up next. We'll be using a +3 Falchion with Gold Pine Resin. So, being that it's New Game Plus, they do a lot of damage, taking out 80% of my health with a single hit. But thankfully, we have fast attacks now and are able to dodge a bit better thanks to our ADP boosting gear. There were still a few tense moments, but soon after this boss falls. We have enough souls to get up to 29 dex. So we do. We head to Shaded Woods and kill all these idiots for a bit of revenge. Forlorn invaded me. I didn't really get his point, but I made sure he got mine. I used the pike for Najka because, as we know, she's weak to thrust damage. Even at just +3, the charcoal pine resin and old Leo ring help this to do great damage. The pike also has really good range and can get multiple hits in, so this was a fine choice. Najka very much despikes being poked repeatedly, it seems. We're up to 34 dex now. Instead of leaving it till last, let's get Royal Rat Authority out of the way now. I plan to use the Old Knight's Halberd spinning attack to take all the rats out in one fell swoop. Unfortunately, I still got toxicked and died though. Next try, I managed to pull it off successfully, wiping out all the little buggers at once. Charcoal pine resin was probably unnecessary, but honestly, I despise this boss, so no regrets. It how burdens this cycle with its presence no longer. With that rubbish done, we head to Brightstone Cove where these guys are on a roll. We quickly say hi to Freya, after which we get a lucky drop of Peasant Gloves, which gives us 2 more ADP. The more the better, what a peasant surprise. For the congregation, we're going to use the Murakumo. The damage was very good, resin again was probably unnecessary, backstabs finished off the main ones, and the overhand R2 smash worked great for killing the little guys on the floor. Let's be real, they would have needed a miracle to beat me here. Further in the cove, the spiders gave me a nice warm welcome. Time for Freya. We used the mirror greatsword with a torch. This weapon felt fairly unremarkable, but to be honest it performed fine for Freya, who was very easy to just walk around and slash a few times with it till she died. This fight was basically a mirror image of how it went last cycle. Now we get to 43 decks, right before we free Ornith X. We trade for Spider's Silk with Freya's Soul, before going back into this hellhole. I honestly tried to spend as little time here as possible, and I just rushed to the Black Gulch. I poked the woodland child off the ledge and lit the second bonfire. So onto the misbegotten Crusader. We used the wing spear for this one, buffed once again with gold pine resin. This was an easy back and forth fight just like before, almost hitless apart from this one time with whatever the hitbox of this shockwave was. A few more stabs and the wing spear helps us to glide to victory. While I was down here, I decided to do Royal Rat Vanguard as well. I opted to use Spider's Silk because I realized looking at the stats how weak it was and I didn't want to have to waste precious petrified dragon bones on upgrading it. This was not a great fight. It took several hits to kill each rat, and the main rat actually did loads of damage to me once he spawned. Not as silky smooth as I had hoped, but with enough thrusts, the second rat fight of this cycle is over with at least. We head into Huntsman's Copse because, well, why not? No, really, why not? Tell me in the comments! Right now, I want to know! So the Skeleton Lords. For them, we used the Melu Scimitar, which I assumed had some special effect, but actually, it's just a pretty mediocre weapon. Perfect for this mediocre boss, I guess. The Lords were fine, but the skeleton hordes could annihilate me if I wasn't careful. It was a lot of running away and slashing, but I kept positive thoughts in my head to keep myself Melu until it was over. We head into Earthen Peak proper and use Rickard's Rapier on the Covetous Demon. The R2 hits loads of times, but it just doesn't seem as efficient as multiple R1s, honestly. The counter scaling on the Rapier is pretty good, so the damage jumps up a lot when we hit the Covetous Demon during his massive windows. A few more stabs, and he goes into Ricardiac Arrest. Let's just keep pushing through. We get the windmill lit up and take on Mitha. We fought her with Hyde's spear as she's weak to thrust, but I forgot that she actually resists lightning, and I got poked by the air around her spear for a quick death. So I used Pate's spear instead. Even unupgraded, it did great damage with the charcoal pine resin buff. I got lucky near the start with Mitha repeating the same tail attack over and over, giving me a good window to attack for counter damage. Obviously her damage is high, so we still have to be careful, but with enough patience we leave her contemplating her life choices as she dies. Guess what? We're up to 50 decks now. So onto Iron Keep, fun times ahead. I somehow managed to run to Smelter Demon and not get hit going through the fog gate. Now, it was time to use the Hade Spear for lightning damage. I did pretty well until I mistimed this dodge and got wiped out by the fire from his sword. Next time, I managed to succeed through a flurry of fiery dodges, lifting my spirits as the run continued. The Alon Knights ahead now dropped Black Steel Katanas relentlessly. Thanks guys. Just before the bonfire, we fried up the Red Phantom until he was nice and crispy. I used the Great Scythe for the old Iron King, as I didn't want to have to worry about the silly sweet spot for a more mobile boss. I did unfortunately end up having a super frustrating death, not from the lava mind you, but the edge of his fire hitting me and one-shotting me just as I landed the final blow, and guess what? It didn't count. Next time though, I got him. The Scythe was +6, did okay damage, not amazing, but fine for this boss. I just slashed when he did his hand slams, and that's about as con-scythe as I can say it. Now, we get up to 58 decks. Before heading to the gutter, I went to clear up some optional bosses. So first, I used the Washing Pole +9 to clear hides, which was a slow and tedious process, but we got there eventually. I forgot about the damn Red Phantom near the end though. Next go around, we got through and killed Ian. So back to old Dragon Slayer, whose fight I did remember to record this time, and for him we used the Royal Dirk. It's technically a dagger, but it has a longer reach than most daggers by quite a bit. It has quick attacks, so we use the rotten pine resin to easily proc poison and make the fight go a bit faster. I mean, this probably was unnecessary, but to be honest, any help clearing a Dirksome boss is always good. As it's not too far away, let's do the Flexile Sentry next. I decided to use the unupgraded Umbral Dagger for some reason. I actually forgot about the additional enemies in the fight, which is really going to annoy that one commenter who keeps saying how annoyed they are by me forgetting things all the time, but the dagger handled them surprisingly well. A little bit of rotten pine resin helped to bring down the sentry quick. Shame he couldn't shield himself from my rain of slashes with an umbrella. Back to Lost Bastille, we did the Belfry Gargoyles with the +9 Partisan. Damage was alright, but not that special. At least we had some range this time, but it didn't prevent this from being a run around and spam life gems sesh. At least I got to work on my partisanal skills. With some optional bosses now cleared, let's head below to Lost Sinner. We can actually take out this red phantom mummy in the water easily for once, instead of getting body blocked and blown up. For Lost Sinner, I used the Lois Greatsword +1. I had a theory I wanted to test here though. In New Game Plus, 2 pyromancers join the fray about halfway in, but is their joining the fight tied to lighting up the room? I decided to go in the dark, and I was incorrect. The pyro douches still come regardless. Luckily though, I killed them in 2 hits. I used the R2 of the Greatsword to poke the Sinner in her counter windows. This all went pretty smoothly, apart from a few erroneous hits here and there, but after a few stabs, we rejoice in the glory of our victory. As that's the 4th Great Soul of the cycle, Audia now appears again. There's a couple of other bits and pieces I want to clear up quick. We get Mythos Bent Strayed from Blade, and then get the Chaos Blade from Ornifex using the New Game Plus exclusive Soul dropped by the Lost Sinner. We also still need to do the Executioner's Chariot. I had another wacky theory I wanted to test out here. Do the Necromancers respawn if you kill them and then quit the game? Well, sadly they do. I mean, I killed them easily with the Dranglake Sword +1, but good to know for future. The horse also went down with no issue this time. I just stuck to its side, and soon it died, leaving a Dranglake of blood on the ground beneath it. Speaking of Dranglake, finally time for Dranglake Castle, and let me tell ya, this red phantom killed me more times than many of the bosses in this run. I literally just managed to get the golems activated before dying. I ran all the way back and got in the castle as quick as I could, managing to activate the bonfire, but guess what? The red phantom chased me all the way here and killed me. Well, anyway, screw that guy. Onto the Dragon Riders with the Charred Lois Greatsword. Probably should have upgraded it before doing this fight, but ah well. We take out the greenish one first as he has lower health, which seems to just be the best strategy for melee. The damage was actually still decent even unupgraded. Once the first is down, the other wasn't too hard to kill. In case you were curious, we have reached 67 dex. So of course, we activate the golem to bring the lift down, but the small room at the top now has a red phantom too. Why does this guy have so much health? Even the backstab didn't do that much. What a beast. So for Looking Glass Knight, I've got a pretty interesting weapon choice. The +2 Drakeblood Greatsword for its fire and lightning damage, perfect for covering both bases as Looking Glass Knight is weak to fire, but the rain makes lightning stronger. The only issue was accidentally hitting his shield from time to time with the way the weapon swings, or maybe that's a skill issue on my part. Probably the latter. The summon was easy enough to Drake down at least, and the knight followed shortly after. Shrine of Amana time, the consistent fan favourite. I slashed up the new Red Phantom NPC here, and killed off these idiots with the rapier this time round. For the durability killing bugs blocking the way, I used throwing knives to get rid of them to avoid my equipment getting broken, and it was pretty effective. I needed a place to use the Warp Sword +1, and the Demon of Song seemed as good a candidate as any. I used rotten pine resin initially for a bit of poison to take the health away while Froggy was hiding in its skin, but then used gold pine resin for the water boosted damage. I was kinda just messing about really, easy boss even with a barely upgraded weapon. This fight flew by. I guess we accidentally engaged the warp drive. After getting up to 73 dex, we upgrade the Flamberge to +9. If you guessed that we're going to use the Flamberge for Velstad, well, I'll send you your medal shortly. I thought the bleed would be better here, but it wasn't. Turns out we couldn't really get enough hits in to proc it consistently. It still did decent enough damage, and I was proud of the dodging I did here after my failings in the last cycle. I mean, I know I have more ADP boosting gear than back then, but hey, let me have this one. Velstad goes down without too much issue, thanks to me fighting my greedy Flamberges and taking my time. With the King's Ring in hand, we move on to Oldia's Keep, where I took out the greatest swordsman in Mirror in a fierce battle. For Ian the Guard Dragon, I actually used the Key to the Embedded. I thought this was like a silly, funny gimmick weapon, but the damage certainly was no joke. I actually got some huge numbers thanks to its giant counter modifier, which was the key to our success as we sliced through Ian easily. We got to 80 dex, and much like our strength in the previous cycle, I don't really see any need to level it up more. We make it to the Dragon Shrine, where the wind from this guy's arm movement kills me in a Dark Souls 1 Titanite demon moment. I actually had a close fight with the champion. Poison knives helped to weaken him, but he did nearly kill me. That is some big damage. I grabbed the Ashen Mist Heart, but this time I'm not going to fight this dragon for the moment. Gotta build myself up to that endeavor. So I went and killed the giants instead, and using the key they dropped, got the Dragon Talon. That's right, it's time for the DLC now. I'll take a less chaotic route this time, I promise. I used a throwing knife to access the bonfire here. I'm enjoying how much I've got to use them on this run, but enjoyment might end here as it's time for Alana. I used the black steel katana here with the gold pine resin. Maybe this is an obvious statement, but it's crazy how easy she is with melee versus using magic or archery. I easily killed the skeletons again, but I didn't get so lucky this time and she did indeed summon Velstad. I opted to just avoid him and do hit and run as it seemed easier than trying to kill him. I was on a bit of a timer though, because if I took too long here, she'd summon skeletons as well. I was fortunate in that I was able to take her out before then, plunging my steel into her black heart to end this one. I was in a katana frame of mind it seems, so for Sin, I went with the trusty Uchi katana. I was a little worried about the durability situation given his skin erodes weapons, but that never became an issue honestly. This was a great choice, the damage was really good. Hitting Sin's head after his attacks was very satisfying. I actually only got hit once thanks to his head poking me from his flying dive. Kinda crazy that somehow didn't knock me down or even stagger me whatsoever, very odd. But as a weapon selection, the Uchi was all Gucci. Our first crown in New Game Plus is ours. I wish this DLC was done, but the Gank Squad, oh my god, this was actual pain. I initially tried using the Manslayer as I thought poison would help, but I couldn't hit frequently enough to proc it. This death here was after 13 minutes of fighting them. This was the most frustrating fight so far. The number of times attempts ended because I misjudged how far they could attack me from or other such factors was truly infuriating. After such good progress with the previous two bosses, this was the fight that broke me. On the winning attempt, I did end up using the Manslayer. I actually got Varg to hurt Sarah in a rarely seen glitch where friendly fire is allowed if they are at the end of an attack animation. With him down, it was a lot of running away and occasional hits on the Grave Robber. But Varg was the biggest issue. My attacks don't stagger him, and he can annihilate my health with a single hit, and it's really hard to actually land a hit of my own without getting punished. If I do get hit and then miss time dodging his follow-up, I'm dead. I tried consumables out of desperation like alluring skulls, which obviously didn't work. I did get one backstab when he healed and then used throwing knives to finish him. I guess you could technically say this was cheating, but this fight here lasted 26 minutes. I'm not doing that again. Anything to slay this man was fair game in my opinion. Let's go for a palate cleanser in Broom Tower. Alluring skulls help to get through this room again. Sort of. Wait, these barrel guys can actually attack you? Never seen that before. We actually use them to blow up the big guy this time. We get the area sorted by grabbing the scepter and stabbing the idols, because obviously we don't want Rami Malek to heal. Given the trouble this fight caused me last cycle, I was ready to crack out the big guns. That's right, it's time for a max upgraded rapier. I used a bright bug and also gold pine resin to help give us every advantage possible for Fume Knight. The rapier, to the surprise of no one, was really good. Easy to dodge lots of his attacks and quickly punish due to quick attack animations and low stamina cost. He actually didn't go to his second phase until right near the end of the fight thanks to him smashing his sword in the ground in rage whenever I tried to use life gems. This went much better than last cycle, probably thanks to our rapierless weapon. Okay, so it's not quite peerless given that there are others in its class, like the Espada Ropera, which we'll use for Sir Alon. It's similar to the rapier, but slightly better damage. I used a bright bug again with gold pine resin, and this did go pretty smoothly for the same reasons as with Fume Knight. I did actually almost get the hitless, and I no joke debated restarting the attempt when I did get hit, but after all I'd been through so far, and how much I still had to do on this run, I just took the win as is. Good thing the durability of this weapon survived, it would have been a pain to ropera it mid-fight. So that just leaves Blue Smelter Demon. My original plan was to use Mytha's Bent Blade for the poison and toxic to wear him down, but it honestly didn't go very well. Once again, the hitboxes of this fight caused me issues. And that's nothing to do with ADP, I wasn't even rolling there. Surviving long enough for the poison to kill him seemed to be an issue, so I tried with the Curved Dragon Greatsword, but still things went badly for your boy. Next attempt though, the Curved Dragon Greatsword got it done. I used a bright bug and stuck to one attack with each opening for safety. Elizabeth Mushrooms and Radiant Life Gems helped to keep the health up. This was a harsh difficulty curve compared to the previous couple DLC fights, but at least it won't drag on any longer. So it's Elium Lois now to finish off the DLC gauntlet. We eat some enemies off the edge and get another ice rapier drop right away because, of course we do. In a fitting choice, I use the sword known as Elium Lois against Arva for some good synergy. It does have bleed, which did proc once or twice, but it's only 200 flat damage, so it doesn't really add much against Arva's massive health pool in New Game Plus. But it did decent damage and had fast swings, which I needed for this. We defeated the kitty shortly after to make the rest of the level available to explore. So we did all the torch lighting and night gathering to set ourselves up for the next two bosses. That of course means it's Ivory King time. To keep the synergy going, I went with the Ice Rapier here, which felt appropriate. The first attempt was going really well, until this happened. One wrong dodge after all that. Back to the start, I guess. For the knights, I used gold pine resin to help bring them down quickly, plus Elizabeth mushrooms for passive healing. I again used a bright bug before the king came out. I got some good counter hits on him and managed to dodge a lot of his attacks, although as always did get caught near the end. This time, I managed to dodge the swipe that killed me previously, and then his sword buff wore off, allowing me to put the king on ice shortly after. I got through to Lud and Zalin, but on slowing the footage down, Arva's back foot I think landed on me here, but I guess I wasn't expecting that to be a one-shot. More fool me, I guess. For whatever reason, the cats were really overexcited today. Seriously, what's going on with them? Did they feed them catnip on New Game Plus? I kept really struggling with this because I just couldn't get the damage off to finish off Lud before Zalin got properly involved. After trying different weapons, I went with the Drakewing Ultra Greatsword, and the thing that saved me was actually the weapon art. It counts as a thrust attack, and with the old Leo ring, it dealt a monster amount of damage close up during Lud's counter windows. It only took 2 to finish him off when Zalin joined the fight. I was still bricking it while fighting Zalin, terrified of dying, and ended up using 2 bright bugs, which was probably a waste. With some surprisingly good dodging, I got through and survived. Drake it till you make it, I guess. I was really just winging it here. With the DLC all done, time for Dark Lurker. I made use of some heavy cheese to get through the chasms. I regret nothing. For Dark Lurker, I used the washing pole. Finally, it's time to shine. I used a bright bug and gold pine resin as soon as I got in. I think I got kinda lucky here because I managed to get him down to about 30% health by the time he split. The last part was pretty chaotic, with projectiles firing everywhere, and I had a rare experience in a FromSoft game where there was an attack that looked like it should have hit me, but actually it didn't. How did his beam sword not damage me here? Anyway, after lots of running and hitting later, he finally goes down. Farewell to one of the best weapons I used on this cycle. Hung out to dry at last. Time to clear up the rest of the cycle now. I ended up using Mythos Bent Blade for Ancient Dragon. I didn't really want to use any petrified dragon bones on it, so I just let the poison and toxic bring its health down quickly. Guess this ancient dragon really is mythical. For Vendrick, I used the Bewitched Alon sword. You might think this feels like a waste of this cool weapon, but the low durability really put me off using it in the DLC fights, and it was my last bleed weapon left, which helped to speed this along a little bit. Which boss do we do next? Well, it's Giant Lord. We use the Fume Sword. Damage was fine because he's weak to dark, but overall this seems like quite an underwhelming boss weapon. I'm not really sure why you'd want to choose this over the Ultra Greatsword. I'd be fuming if I picked this over that. Despite the DLC being completed, there was still one last boss I was kind of worried about on this cycle, that being Throne Watcher and Defender. And I was right to be worried. I used the Helix Halberd with the old Leo ring for counter thrust damage. The halberd, you see, has a heavy attack poke where the hidden spike pops out at the end. This is only at +2 and the damage was huge, with gold pine resin and bright bug of course. I just went for one poke at a time, being very cautious honestly, until at last the defender died. Then the Watcher with its low health was easy to take down. A few more pokes and he licks the dirt on the ground. Okay, let's finish this cycle. Nishandra had a date with the Puzzling Stone Sword. I know this has a cool whip heavy attack, but I didn't find a good use for it in the fight, so I just poked her to death with gold pine resin. Its light attacks are basically the same as a rapier. She went down quick, leaving her puzzled over what had just transpired. And lastly, Audia, for whom we use the Chaos Blade. You lose health with each hit of this katana, so I hadn't wanted to use it on a challenging boss, but the health drain wasn't as bad as I thought actually. Other than that, it's the usual Audia fight, and we chaostracize him from the world of the living. This time, I tune myself away with the deck cycle complete. But sadly, this run is not over, not by a long shot. I won't go through every single one, but I went and grabbed some weapons for the last cycle. You'll see them as we go through. While doing this, I got invaded, and I got killed by the air in front of this guy's spear. Is that like a lag thing or something? It looks like his spear was nowhere near me. Anyhow, the ADP cycle begins.
Hey, Babs here. So, you might remember that in the Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3 one stat per cycle videos, I did a cameo where I pulled off an epic boss kill. JK asked me if I wanted to do that for this video as well, and I said no, because fuck Dark Souls 2.
First things first, I'm not suffering low ADP for another moment, so I use all my souls from these last few boss fights to get up to 26 ADP right away. The Medulla Pit is our first destination this time. I did make it to Black Gulch, but I broke my gear on the way, and Leningrast's shop isn't open to repair it yet. Oops. Let's just run and get Leningrad's key real quick. With my equipment repaired, it was time again for the Rotten. I used the Thorn Greatsword for, say it with me, lightning and thrust damage. This was unupgraded, so damage wasn't incredible, but it didn't matter. We smashed through, barely getting hit. With him beaten for the final time, this boss was no longer a thorn in our side. We should probably do Last Giant now for Melentia's Infinite Life Gem shop. I'm going to use the Retainer Shortsword here. We kind of need to use this for an easy boss because we need to use Blackweed Balm to even wield it thanks to the intelligence requirement. It's got quick attacks and some magic damage, so it's okay, but it's not a weapon whose services I'll be looking to retain after this fight. I actually killed the giants below the Black Gulch earlier this cycle to get the key for the first DLC right away. I want to really change up the route here, so I plan to try and get the harder DLC stuff done earlier this time. Deep inside, both the Invisible Knights and Forlorn seemed really aroused by my presence. It seems like they fell for me. I used some knives to kill the rest of them, and then sent this Jester to fester at the bottom of this chasm. Given how painful this fight was on the last run, I took on the Gank Squad first this time to get it out the way. Time for the return of our +9 Zweihander. The heavy attack poke knocked down the Grave Robber and Serra, so taking them out by timing these as they came towards me was pretty easy. For Varg, who doesn't seem to consistently get knocked down by our poke, I kept getting him to drop down from this ledge and hitting him with a poke as he landed. It was still slow, but way quicker and safer than the last cycle. This only took 14 minutes, and we got him first try. Was this a waste of the Zweihander? Time will tell, but at least it handled this fight without too much issue. We now get ADP up to 32. For Alana, I used the Stone Twin Blade at +10. With Brightbug and Gold Pine Resin, we had some great damage and had her down to about 40% health by the time she did her first summon, Velstad. Luckily, we could attack quick enough to just kite Velstad around and hit and run. This surprisingly again wasn't too difficult, and she went down after just 4 minutes. Did we really go through 3 cycles without this fight causing us problems? Am I stoned or something? For Sin, I decided to be lore accurate, or perhaps I should say Yorg accurate, and used Yorg's spear at +2. This weapon can poke like a spear, swish like a twin blade, and spin to win like a halberd. Damage was good, and the poke meant I could nicely get his head after the charging swipe. He did fly a bit too much for my liking towards the end, meaning there was a lot of waiting around, but with enough patience he goes down and DLC 1 is complete already. Our ADP is looking nice at 42 now. Pretty sure 42 ADP is the meaning of life. We can't get to any of the other DLCs yet, so instead we move on to Hides where we use knives to help clear out the night enemies, and we use the malformed skull to kill Ian. This could well be the skull of one of his relatives, so it felt like the right thing to do. We have Ornstein at home? Well, I have a blue dagger in my hand. It's unupgraded and buffed with rotten pine resin to bring his health down quickly. I barely got hit apart from the lingering hitbox from the shockwave of his jump attack, leaving the old Dragon Slayer feeling blue. I then used the Watcher Greatsword to take down Dragon Rider, also unupgraded. Are you proud of me for not cheesing Dragon Rider on any of these cycles? Are you? I hope you were watching, Dragon Rider loving comments guy. Anyway, we now head to Huntsman's Copse and take on the final Skeleton Lord's fight. I used the Lost Sinner's Sword, which I had no intention of using Petrified Dragon Bones to upgrade. It actually took quite a few hits to take the enemies down, which I guess isn't surprising. I believe this sword has some kind of damage calculation based on whether you've killed NPCs or not, but it wasn't something I looked into. With the Horde, I waited for a big group to come close and then did the heavy attack to hit several at the same time. Hopefully, the syntax of my sentence describing this fight was sufficient. So we head straight to Harvest Valley and Covetous Demon. I used the Moonlight Greatsword for Covetous Demon. What? He's weak to magic! Also, we needed to use Blackweed Bomb to wield, and that's just too limiting to use in a real boss fight. The projectile did very little damage from a distance, but close up, it was still bad. A pretty mundane encounter overall. With our now 45 ADP, I proceed up and get the windmill lit for the last time. Let's blast through these next few bosses. We use the Spitfire Spear for Mitha. As we know from the previous cycle, she's weak to fire and thrust, but this weapon isn't upgraded, so yeah, damage isn't good. Our high ADP shines here though, dodging feels so much more forgiving than before. The Fireball R2 did very little, so I didn't really use it. I just kept within spitting distance and poking her till she died. For Smelter Demon, I used the Ivory Straight Sword initially because it has strike damage, but unupgraded, it was pretty poor damage, and the moveset seemed weirdly slow. So I quickly pivoted mid-fight to the Yellow Quartz Longsword +6 with Rotten Pine Resin. Damage was okay, and 2 rounds of poison helped to bring this one down pretty quickly. I don't know if this was a waste of this weapon or not, but I just had to choose something quickly as changing weapon mid-fight caught me off guard. Let's have some fun with Old Iron King. I decided to switch to the Butterfly Armor for immense fashion and possible poison. This of course did nothing to help due to the King's high poison resist. I used the Barbed Club for strike damage here. I had mistakenly thought he could be bled for some reason, but I guess I imagined that. Oh well. We can get 4 hits in when he does a Fist Slam or Hand Beam, and we sedate him shortly after with a heavy dose of Barbiturates. 50 ADP now, lads. And you know what beating Old Iron King means? We can go down the Salamander Pit again, get the Heavy Iron Key, and do a very early Broom Tower. Now, I literally do not want to spend another second talking about how I made it through this room or the rest of the tower. I did get a satisfying kill on Quicksword Rachel though. I used the standard Twin Blade for Blue Smelter Demon with Rotten Pine Resin and Butterfly Set for maximum poison. Twin Blade hits lots, so easy to proc the poison. ADP made such a difference to this fight, it was just unbelievable. Dodging his attacks felt like a dream, and soon after, we execute our twin condition. I used the classic broadsword for Fume Knight. Well, should have expected that. Much like my camping trip from last year, this was pretty intense. The broadsword was at +9, damage was okay but not amazing, there was a lot of dodging and weaving back and forth, another example of how much ADP makes a difference to the game. It was a fun fight this time round, broadly speaking at least, and felt satisfying instead of frustrating, which is always good. We of course can't do Cerulon yet as we don't have the Ashen Mist Heart on this cycle, so we'll move on for now. Time to blast through a lot of bosses. First, we head to Shaded Woods. We use the Scythe of Na Alma for Najka. The sweet spot damage was decent and it swings fast as well. Didn't know where else to use this weapon to be honest. We tick Najka off in our DS2 Almanac. We make our way through Doors of Pharos, backstabbing some Germs on the way. We then had another intimate encounter with Freya, something that made these degenerate peasants get a bit too excited. We used the Dragon Rider Halberd for Congregation because spin to win. Basically do that on repeat and keep ridering the wave of success. We used Black Flamestone Dagger at +6 for Freya, which, despite its name, doesn't actually do fire damage, which is pretty weird. It can be buffed with Charcoal Pine Resin and the one-handed R2 was decent enough damage. As usual, we run around Freya. I did get hit once and went into 1 HP in a dream mode, but recovered fine enough. This weapon has such a cool name, and it looks awesome, but it's just pretty average, just somewhat lackluster one might say. Only 1 Great Soul remaining for the final cycle. Right, back to the Forest of Fallen Giants for the Pursuer. We went with the Iron King Hammer for the strike and fire damage. Actually mainly used the R2 for the fire explosion, because it just looks cool. Damage was really good, and this is only +1. Maybe I should have saved this for another boss? Oh well, it was still a blast to use it. With that, we got one last trip to the Lost Bastille to make. For the Ruined Sentinels, I used the Black Knight Halberd +1. Safe to say, this weapon is not the world beater it was back in Dark Souls 1, but with the sweet spot damage, it's pretty good. Lots of spinning to win, from both sides actually. My spin was better though, and they drift off into the Black Knight shortly after. ADP now climbs up to 60. We head down to Lost Sinner now. Along the way, this guy hits the ground so hard his soul bounces out of his body. Unexpectedly, Lost Sinner was by far the toughest of the Great Souls on this cycle so far, all because of these pesky pyro guys. I decided to use an aromatic ooze buffed Lucerne. Spin to win once again to kill the pyromancers quick, but it's still tricky to not get killed. This actually really sucked. How am I struggling with this more than the DLC bosses we've done so far on this cycle? I actually used a bright bug here. Focusing on the Sinner was key to victory. Trying to take out the pyro guys had been my undoing before, so I just kept on the Sinner until she died. Then I spun to 1, or whatever the past tense is, on these pyros to kill them without fear of being impaled by the Sinner. I really had to lucerne that victory. Hi Audia. We trudge up to Castle Drang Lake expecting the worst, but spin to win for about the millionth time this cycle was awesome. We took out all the enemies out the front of the castle using the scythe. We can buy the Crescent Sickle and Curved Twin Blade from Chancellor Welliger. He actually only sells these in New Game Plus Plus. But more importantly, we can grab the Frozen Flower because, you guessed it, we're going to get this hell sorted right now. Yet another Ice Rapier. That's like the 4th drop I've got on this run. I went to take on Ava, who seemed to have gotten into whatever Lud was having last cycle. I used the Black Knight Greatsword +1 for the innate fire damage. Poke was really good, but me getting one shot wasn't. Because most hits could almost one-shot me, the winning attempt actually ended up being hitless. I mainly just did the R2 poke throughout whenever Ava left herself exposed. Damage was decent, and after about 4 minutes, she was down for a catnap for the last time. I just knew there was a reason I stocked up on knives. I hate these guys. Anyway, we free the knights, and I also took out Orheim for once. For Burnt Ivory King, I used the standard longsword +9. Gold Pine Resin helped for more damage, and I was really surprised to see how much it actually staggered the knights, making the whole first section a lot easier. For the Ivory King, our knight friend actually survived for a really long time. I beat the Ivory King the first time I got to him here, that high ADP allowing me to avoid all his attacks with no problem. It felt really good to get this done so quickly, given how long this sometimes goes on for. Well, just one thing left here. Hey Lemon, fancy helping me? I deserve that. I didn't deserve that though. I used the last of our Black Knight weapons, the Great Axe at +3 for fire damage against the Twin Kitties. Damage was great, but the durability of the axe is surprisingly low and it ended up breaking, meaning the attempt was over. That was a bit of a disaster, so I swapped out the Ring of Blades +1 for the Bracing Knuckle Ring +1. It helped a bit, but still had to use repair powders several times. Unfortunately, the axe also has a sweet spot, meaning sometimes we get less than half the damage. I was able to finish off Lud while avoiding Zalan's attacks, but it was nowhere near as efficient as last cycle. With Zalan remaining, I was probably overcautious because of how long the R2 of the axe locked me into place. I really didn't want to die after all this. 9 minutes later, this fight is over, and we wish Night Night to the Ivory King DLC. Way, 69 ADP. Okay, boss rush time! Flexile Sentry got the Defender Greatsword +1 for lightning damage boosted by water. 2 hits take out the adds, and a few R2s the Sentry couldn't defend against bring it down. The Belfry Goggles versus a normal spear. A fight for the ages, of course. I actually used a Bright Bug as there's one beyond this fight to replace it. They do quite a bit of damage, but I had quite a bit of experience doing this fight by now. We then head to the Executioner's Chariot, where we use knives to take out the Red Phantom by the Fog Gate. The Dragon Rider Twin Blade felt like a good choice for Executioner's Chariot, but it was only +1 and actually took 4 light attacks to take out the Necromancers. Let's be real though, they are the true threat, and with them down, I took out the skeletons easily and then slice up the horse into sashimi. For Royal Rat Authority, I used the Bastard Sword +9. Overkill? Probably, but it guaranteed that it killed the little bastards in one hit. With the little ones dead, the larger one never actually vomited, which made the fight slightly more pleasant. Slightly. And lastly, for Royal Rat Vanguard, I used the short sword to take them out. Not much else to say on this, it was both short and easy. Definitely didn't get poisoned and nearly die. With that done, we head to Dranglake Castle and take out Lycia again. I used the curved Nil Greatsword for the twin Dragon Riders. This was only +1, but this weapon gets stronger the higher the New Game cycle you are, so at New Game++, the damage is pretty tasty. Its R2 is a spin to win, which of course we like a lot. Once the weaker rider is down, the second goes down without too much issue. Really cool weapon, like the moveset a lot. Definitely not a vanilla weapon. This time, we smash up the Red Phantom more swiftly and get the key to the King's Passage. I used the Malformed Skull for Looking Glass Knight as it's one of our last strike weapons. It does great damage, but the durability is terrible. I had to use a lot of repair powder. It was also pretty slow and left me wide open, so I had to be cautious when choosing to attack, or LGK might malform my skull. But with a few choice hits, down he goes. In Shrine of Amana, Forlornstein invaded me because of course he did. I didn't know if I mentioned it before, but I hate this Red Phantom guy here. Demon of Song is weak to dark, so we used the Roaring Halberd. We had to equip both Ring of Knowledge and Ring of Faith to be able to wield it. Pretty straightforward boss encounter, so much spinning, I'm kinda dizzy. A lot of people love this weapon, so there might be an uproar over me wasting it on this boss. Into the Undead Crypt, and we destroy Lycia once again. I had saved a cool weapon for Velstad, the Crypt Blacksword +2. Again, we had to use the Int and Faith boosting rings to wield it. Good damage, but looking back on this, I realized that Velstad actually resists dark. So why did I use this weapon for him? I'm tired, okay? We got it done. He did huge damage to us with any swing, so good thing we have god tier ADP. We mainly used the R2 for the overhead smash. It's a hilariously big weapon. Good thing Velstad is already in a crypt, I guess. We can kill Vendrick now also, and we use the Ivory King Ultra Greatsword. This weapon actually has bleed, quite high bleed as well, to bring Ven quick down as drick as possible. Once again, I wonder if I wasted this weapon here, but that seems to be a running theme with any weapon I use on certain bosses. We now head to Aldia's Keep, and of course, slay Al-Satil again because why not? Ian the Guard Dragon, meet Crescent Sickle. He's supposedly weaker to magic. The sweet spot was less of an issue than usual for me. I even landed some head hits for more damage. Smooth fight this time. If we had used this weapon in Elium Lois, would it have been a Popsicle? 76 ADP now, which is actually crazy high. We have one last encounter with Tiny Aldia before doing Ancient Dragon. I used the curved twin blade for the bleed to help this go slightly faster. Not much else to say here, this was the usual Ancient Dragon fight. The difficulty for it definitely hasn't curved in any way across these higher cycles. I now quickly went to get the crowns buffed as I realised this would actually be useful later. We then headed to Forest of Fallen Giants, where I swiftly vanquished Forlorn again. For Giant Lord, I used the Scythe, even though I think it's a Bardiche. But anyway, I used Rotten Pine Resin and slashed up his ankles until he's bar deceased. The run nears the end. I decided to get the Dark Lurker chasms out of the way first, as it was one of the last bits of level traversal I needed to do. Boink! For Dark Lurker, I used the Dark Drift Katana. Seemed like an appropriate choice, at least name-wise, although it feels pretty weak for a katana, even with Brightbug and Gold Pine Resin. Then again, Dark Lurker does hard resist physical damage, so maybe that's why. This got quite intense with both of them active, but I felt like I had quite a good grasp of this fight now, and after about 5 attempts, I managed to win, causing Dark Lurker to drift off into the dark. 82 ADP, is this even necessary? I'd say yes when it's Throne Watcher and Defender up next. But don't worry, we got the Fume Ultra Greatsword. Oh, I got one shot. That's perfect. On the next try, I hit Throne Defender so hard he spun round. Why is everything spinning in this game? Shame I couldn't spin that into a win after this. So, after a few more quick deaths, I managed to do it. I stuck with the heavy attack Big Pokes to stab them from a distance after their attacks. It was still pretty nerve-wracking, but I did use the Ring of Steel Protection +2 to help mitigate some of their damage, which I think helped. Hard to say. This was a bit of a blur. I'm really running on fumes at this point. The Chandra with Blue Smelter Sword should be easy, right? So yeah, I just baited her beam attacks and then used the special R2 explosion attack up close to help smelt her health bar. I also didn't get cursed thanks to the powered up crown. So close to the end. For Audia, I used the Ivory Straight Sword at +2, which, despite looking cool, kinda sucks. It's really slow for a straight sword and doesn't do that much damage. Also, it uses a lot of durability with every swing. The R2 was the only part that gave meaningful damage, but it was so slow I could only get one in during each window. This was a really long and painful fight, but we got there in the end. However, I walked out because we're still not done yet. One boss remains. First, we do our last ADP level up, bringing it to 85 now. Time to face our final challenge. I only made it to the boss room by the actual skin of my teeth here. For Sir Alon, I had saved the star of the DS2 one-shot contest, the Grand Lance. How did this go? Well, my voice is a bit tired, so I'll let this speak for itself. After a month's work, the run is finally over. What did we learn from this? Dark Souls 2 without health in ADP kinda sucks. Don't do it, especially in New Game Plus. This run drained the literal soul out of my body, so I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. I've been JK Leeds. See ya, and have a good one.